Sports Talk coming to you on a Monday. Great weekend if you are a KU or K-State fan. And honestly, pretty good weekend if you're a Chiefs fan as well. It could be an even better weekend if the Bills lose tonight or the Jets, either one. I'm happy that either one of them is going to take an L, so that's a positive thing. So honestly, not a bad weekend here.
I mean, if you're a Chief fan, tie is the best outcome, right?
Well, ties
if you think they're both going to be contending.
But ties can actually help you.
But they can also hurt you.
Yeah, they could.
They're not a full game ahead of you in the win column.
But they are a game ahead of you in the loss column.
Half a game ahead.
Yeah, so it could be a good thing tonight, depending on Bills and Jets. We got lots to get to. We're going to talk plenty of KU, K-State, some Big 12. We'll talk with Matt Verderame. We'll hear from Andy Reid. We will discuss week 1 of the NFL, including maybe one coach is finally coming around to myself and Andy Reid. We will get to that coming up today here on 580 Sports Talk. Jake Lavon, Brendan Orzinski, Dan Lucero with you on this Monday. We do have Royals baseball. This is a fun time to ask the question, if the Royals play, do people notice right now? It's kind of like, does the tree fall in the forest if no one's around, doesn't make a sound?
So out of curiosity, did either of you see anything from yesterday's game? Anything at all?
I couldn't even tell you what they did over the weekend, like Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. What did they do?
Without going into detail of what you saw, did you see anything?
Did they win a game?
I did see one thing.
Okay. I assume I know what you saw. It is going to be featured in the 3 o'clock hour during the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Did they win a game?
No, they have 100 losses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They hit the number.
Oh, cool. Did Bobby Wood hit a homer?
No.
Dang it. That's the only thing I care about, honestly. I want him to get to 30-30. I really do. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, there was only one thing noteworthy that happened. I think I know exactly what.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Your guy Cole Reagans is involved.
Did he pitch well?
Well, until
Again,
the end of his outing, he did not pitch bad. He did really didn't pitch bad at all. 2 runs in 5 2/3. You take those. That's not a bad outing at all. It was a fine outing.
We will further explore.
That was his final line?
Yeah, I think they took him out 2 out in the 6th.
I believe so.
Yes.
We will explain further in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Okay.
And if you saw it, you know what we're talking about. Jake didn't see it. We're really we're really excited to spring this on Jake now. I got something to look forward to in the 3 o'clock hour.
So now I have to show restraint.
Yeah.
So I don't look it up.
Yeah.
Correct.
Guys, I don't know if I can do that.
Tim Kirkchin always says the best thing about baseball is that every single day you might see something that's never happened before.
All right.
And I genuinely believe what happened to Cole Reagans has never happened before.
All right. We will get to that. Let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. Very simple, very easy. Go to our YouTube page. Let us know the comments. Say hello. Give us your recap for KU, K-State, both teams 2-0. One's got a big game. The other one's going to win by 80. So
they better win by 80.
We will get to that coming up here in just a little bit. So hit us up on our YouTube page. Very simple, very easy. Have to mention that today is a day that I can't help but remember where I was back on 9/11, 2020. I guess I now say 2020, 2001. It's one of the few times in my entire life that I remember exactly where I was, what I was wearing, who I was talking to when this occurred 22 years ago. So I know there's a lot of stuff online, remembrances and all of that. But that's one thing that shaped our generation, because I was in high school. You were in middle school?
No.
Elementary school?
I was in first grade.
You were in first grade, so you probably don't remember it.
I do. No,
I forget how young you are.
No, man, I remember it vividly.
Can you drive?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, my wife might tell you that I can.
Dan and I were in high school.
Yeah.
And so I do know that seeing all this stuff just floods the memory banks of everything that happened 22 years ago on 9/11. So this is one date that sometimes it feels hard to talk about sports just because of how an impactful one. Like when the Challenger, exploded. That's where a lot of our parents, the Kennedy assassination. I know my mom and dad talk about that, because when we were trying to relate to all that. But 9/11, 22 years ago is something that will, and I say this every single year. I think it should be a requirement if you were of the age that had an impact for you. If there is any way you can get to the 9/11 museum, you need to go. It's right there at ground zero. I cannot stress to you enough, if there is a chance, like if you have to head to work for something in New York, or if you want to visit something, or if you're going to the Northeast, I know New York City isn't for everyone, and I understand that. But I will tell you that museum is the greatest museum I've ever been in, and it's not even close. And I've been to some pretty good museums. So I would urge you, if you have a chance to go through it, take the whole day. It took us 6 hours to get through that museum. I recommend you going to it. And if you can't, obviously, but if you're going to be in New York, you need to go to it. Bypass the Statue of Liberty. Boring. Who cares? All right. Go to this museum. All right. Do two things. Go to the museum and get some pizza. That's really I knocked out New York for you. All right. Central Park's actually pretty cool too. But I don't know why you're laughing, Brendan. I'm giving you.
I appreciate
absolute.
I appreciate.
I cannot stress this enough.
I think the Statue of Liberty is quite cool,
and Statue of Liberty was pretty cool.
Super lame.
Super
lame.
Great grandparents. Yeah, I think so. My great grandparents. Yeah, I have direct relatives who came through Ellis Island, and
Ellis Island is different than the Statue of Liberty.
It's all tied into that wave of migration, though.
But unless I'm sorry. No, I'm gonna stick with it.
Here's these great historic landmarks. They're actually trash.
It's lame. It's lame. It's like Mount Rushmore. Super lame. Don't go. Don't go.
Overrated or underrated? The historical landmarks of the United States. How do you feel about Mount Rushmore?
Super lame. Super lame. Don't go.
Didn't expect an answer.
Don't go.
Wow. Constitution Hall.
Liberty Bell. Kind of boring.
The Alamo.
That one's actually kind of cool because it's amongst everything.
I know we're getting away from a very important point you're making, and I'm sorry for derailing the conversation, but people forget Dan and I once saw Bob Huggins outside of the Alamo.
Yeah, we did.
We probably know.
Well,
was he 2 sheets or 3 sheets?
It was like 10 o'clock. I know what he was doing.
We joked at the time about offering to buy him a drink.
Yeah. Come to find out,
probably didn't need
little did we know. Yeah.
He might have said yes.
But just if you really do have a chance, go to this museum. It's incredible. It's always I enjoy reading all of the stuff again that you've already read about 9/11. But it is a day that you can't help but think about what happened 22 years ago. So
I remember my dad was traveling that day.
No, but that was terrifying.
Yes, I have very clear memory. I remember we got let out of school after like an hour. Our teacher talked to us about it and was like, "Hey, here's what's going on." We got sent home, and I remember my mom freaking out.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Freaking out. Yeah. Understandably so. Yeah, even as a kid, I was 7 years old. I remember being not really getting it, like why, and not like understanding the scale of it for a little while. But yeah, that it changed. It changed American life forever.
It changed the world.
Yeah,
like that. It changed the absolute world. That's one of the most impactful days in the world of history. Like it really is. But we got a lot to get to today. When it comes to the NFL, we'll break down more of it game by game, but there was something that I do want to discuss going into this, because the majority of play in the NFL for week 1 was garbage. Like the actual play was not good. Like it was poor. Like all of the games, so many mistakes, mess ups. Now, some of them were exciting. They were.
Yes.
There's a difference between exciting
close game and good game, right?
And good game. The football was not good. Injuries everywhere. Everywhere. Now, football is a collision sport. You're gonna have injuries. I understand that.
And weather was bad in a lot of
places. And I do understand that. I really, really do. but the amount of specific injuries and how much bad play there was, to me, is very fixable. Oh, how can you fix injuries, Jake? What are you? Some type of a wizard? No. You play the game. You play the game in preseason. You're trying to tell me that all of these injuries, these soft tissue injuries, the reason why the football wasn't any good and O-line play wasn't any good and why, wide receivers are dropping passes left and right. It ain't no shock that Tony dropped a ton of them. He caught like 3 balls for a whole month. Joe Burrow looked, and I really do hope, where is all of the, now I'm going to go a little Chief specific here. Where's all of our Charles Robinsons and our NFL experts? I expect every one of them to start questioning what the Bengals are doing. They need to redo everything. The Bengals looked 30 billion times worse than the Chiefs did yesterday. And don't give me this, it rained crap, okay? Don't give me that. The Bengals looked 80 times horrific. And am I seeing anything on the Bengals and, they got to redo the future? I don't know. And they had all their guys there. They had every one of their guys there. But overall, the football was bad. Still entertaining. I mean, honestly, there was like 3 bad games. Last night's Sunday Nighter, which we turned off when I was, 19-0?
16-0 was enough for me.
16 for you. The Ravens game against Houston, but that was a game at halftime. But most of them were pretty close.
Bears-Packers was gross unless you were a Packer fan.
Yeah, Brendan really liked that.
Steelers-49ers was gross unless you were a 49er fan. There were a lot of games where...
I was going to say, I think actually a lot of these games are kind of bad.
Yeah, there are a lot of
the 4:30 window games were good.
The noon games, bad. 4:30 was...
Yeah.
At least a little,
depending on perspective.
Chargers-Dolphins, we will probably look back on even by the time we get to week 18 and say that was one of the games of the year.
Yeah,
that was fun game, well played, high level game,
superstar performances.
Yes, and the Chargers doing what the Chargers always do.
But the amount of injuries, how many hamstring injuries did occur? How many groin injuries? How many poor performances? Because none of these dudes played. This is why I am worried for Chris Jones. This is why there is a legitimate question to ask Andy Reid. Why did you play Kadarius Toney that many snaps? There are defendable questions that you can ask a lot of these teams as to, you didn't play anybody. And then look, it is not, I'll throw the Packers in this. The Packers last year opened up the season and looked like doo-doo. That's because none of them dudes played last year. All of a sudden this year, brand new quarterback, right? How many guys played for the Packers this year in the preseason? They played the whole damn preseason because they needed to get ready. Like, there is something to getting the hits out, getting the muscle tweaks and everything. That's why whenever Chris Jones, we'll get to him in just a little bit, whenever he does play, I'm telling you, within the first 3 games, he's gonna get hurt. This isn't something like, oh, Jake, you're being, way too negative. This is football. How can you determine all of that? If you've already got one question, and I know both of you guys found this, but Nick Sirianni's even going, maybe I need to reevaluate some of the stuff I'm doing, because the Eagles did not look good yesterday. And don't give me this, the Patriots are going to be better stuff. They might be, but the Eagles have a far better roster than they do. None of them dudes played in the preseason.
They goofed around in that game. That was more about the Eagles than the Pats.
I think there is something to this at the beginning of the year, that the only way that you can prepare for football is to play football. That's the only thing that you can do. And could it be coincidental? It might be. It might. How many injuries did the Chiefs have after their game?
None.
Yeah.
None. No. Every other team has a hamstring problem or a groin problem, or they hurt something. That's how you get ready for football. You get hit. I still think there's a part of me that says, why do quarterbacks get hurt so often? Because they don't get hit outside of 17 times a year. That's it. And now I understand it. I don't want Patrick Mahomes getting hit in practice. All right. I'm not advocating that. I'm not advocating take off the red jersey or the yellow jersey and let him get smoked. But I'm saying that that's kind of maybe a reason why some of these were some absolute laughers when it comes to the season. You know, Burrow didn't play all preseason. He sucked.
Yeah, he was terrible.
He was terrible.
And look, he wasn't very good week 1 last year. But
why? But why?
They didn't play him in the preseason.
Why?
Because
he's hurt.
He had an appendicitis.
Yeah,
exactly. Like there's
availability.
A reason.
Yes. I am inclined to agree with you that there were a lot of data points, particularly yesterday, where you could point to and say these teams or these players who did not have a full training camp did not look up to speed in week 1. The Chiefs have the example of this in Kadarius Toney. And we're going to hear Andy Reid later on in this show, but Andy Reid says, look, I put him in a bad position and left unsaid when Reid says that is, we were too reliant on a guy who had no camp, had no preseason games. Like he got hurt on the first punt return on the first day of camp. He had no camp. He had a week, maybe a week and a half of practice. And that was all he had to get ready. And he went out on Thursday night and was not ready, was not himself, was not the player that you're used to seeing. Joe Burrow had the calf injury early in camp, didn't have a lot of camp, didn't play any of the preseason games. That was not the player that we are accustomed to seeing. There were maybe some other reasons for that too. The Cleveland defensive line looks to be very good. And hey, Cincinnati, how are you feeling about your left tackle today?
Can I stand up? Can I puff up my chest?
Is there something you would like to say about that?
Yeah.
Would you like to say something about Cincinnati's new high dollar left tackle?
Yeah. That's why we didn't pay him. That's why I'm glad the Chiefs didn't pay him.
So I do. I think there's a lot of evidence, and Nick Sirianni saw it. John Harbaugh, Mr. Like my team wins all the time in the preseason. Like they care about it in a way that other teams don't. And even John Harbaugh's like, yeah, we got to maybe reevaluate how we go about getting ready for the season because they went out and J.K. Dobbins is out for the year. They lost a defensive back for an extended amount of time. Ronnie Stanley's hurt again.
Now, some of the injuries, I'm not trying to say like they're all of them. You know what I mean? Like, well, I'm not an all or nothing guy.
Well, sure. And there's a flip side of this too, that some guys, I think it is more about the general than the specific, because if you want a specific example of someone who didn't play in the preseason, hell, he didn't go to camp, he didn't practice, he didn't do anything. He didn't join the team until Thursday this past week? Nick Bosa.
Mm-hmm.
All those dudes who were going crazy for the 49ers this weekend, and there were a lot of them, their best defensive player was Nick Bosa. He was unstoppable yesterday. He looked incredible.
Now, we've made the point time and again about Walter Jones, right? Like in relation to another Jones that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. We have made the point about there are some guys who are just different, who don't need it, who can show up having worked out and just worked out and show up on week 1 and dominate. There are few guys like that. Most of them have busts in Canton.
Right, exactly.
And two of them you just mentioned, Walter Jones and Nick Bosa's on a pretty good track record to end up there.
Those dudes are truly different. And there are some guys who are different who still can't do that. And that, I mean, you understand, Burrow is still among, I would say, the 3 best quarterbacks in the league. I think you still want to put Mahomes, Burrow, Allen as your top 3 in some order. I think that's totally fair. I think that's the appropriate group to put up there. And the fact that he hasn't thrown a football meaningfully in over a month meant something in that game.
Yeah.
I also would like to add, because I know you specifically, Jake, love to point out when coaches do dumb things. The Bengals weren't going to win yesterday anyway. I mean, they were terrible.
Awful.
They, according to Pro Football Focus anyway, they actually graded above average running the ball. And the Browns defense actually graded below average in defending the run. Maybe this is a hint for coaches too. Like the point about Kadarius Toney, why'd you play him so many snaps if he's barely playing at all?
That's a viable question for Andy Reid.
Considering how much he cost you in the second half of that game on Thursday, absolutely a fair question. Same thing. Hey, maybe if your quarterback only practiced for not even a full week leading up to your first game, coming off of a bad leg, and he's got an injury history, maybe don't throw 31 times against that defense. Maybe run it a little bit more. If nothing else, he's going to look a little bit better and he's going to get hit a little bit less. Again, maybe they lose 24-10 instead of 24-3. Probably doesn't make much of a difference. But it comes down to the in-game coaching and adjustments too. And I think, if nothing else, even if coaches don't say, I'm going to start playing my starters for a full quarter or a full half in preseason games, maybe it does become a little bit more of, you know what? We're going to ease the playbook in. Week 1 is going to be a toned down version of what we plan to be weeks 2 onward. So we can get a little bit more adjustment to the regular season, as opposed to, I'm sure Burrow's fine. I'm sure he'll be just fine after not having worked with his receivers in 6 weeks.
We got lots to get to. Hit us up on our text line. Let us know your thoughts. 785-272-9429. From the text line, lack of preseason is diluting the first 2 to 4 weeks. I don't know, maybe about that far, but for sure the first one, no question. Let us know your thoughts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Coming up next, the latest in Chris Jones's holdout. Latest news on Chris Jones. There you have it.
Well,
so that's
okay.
There we go. That's what we know is
not
that right there.
Not entirely fair. We did hear from Andy Reid. Andy Reid went on the record saying that the team and the player are communicating, which is about as far as Andy Reid will ever go talking about a player
Melissa
off the
Stark
field.
told us Thursday on the TV broadcast that they haven't spoken a week and a half. I thought he would be playing. I thought he'd play week 2.
There's a lot of precedent for early season holdouts lasting 2 weeks. Let me give you 2 prominent examples. One of them from recent memory is Cam Chancellor, star safety from the Seattle Seahawks. 1 year into his contract extension, the year after they lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. So they'd been to back-to-back Super Bowls at the time. And Chancellor was 1 year into his extension. He said, nah, man, I want another deal. And he held out. He held out, and he missed 2 weeks. The Seahawks lost both of those games. And then they paid the man. And the Seahawks went 10-4 the rest of the way and ended up reaching the divisional round of playoffs. They lost by 1 score to the eventual NFC champions that year. The other most prominent example of the star player holding out 2 weeks, you have to go all the way back to 1993.
Emmitt Smith?
That's right.
Emmitt Smith.
Good call.
Yep.
Held out the first 2 weeks in 1993.
Yep.
Do you remember the name of the Dallas Cowboys starting running back in those first 2 games? Sounds vaguely like a brand of pickles.
Bob Hope.
Bob Someone Vlasic.
Derek Lassick was their starting running back for the first 2 games in 1993. The Cowboys, in related story, didn't win either of those games. Then they made Emmitt Smith the highest paid running back in the NFL and proceeded to win the Super Bowl that year. So 0-2 starts for great teams when they've got guys holding out. Not fatal, but usually 2 weeks is about the limit for A, a guy being willing to not play, and B, a team being willing not to have a transformational member of their team. So I kind of thought, I mean, him being in Kansas City, being at week 1, I kind of thought that maybe he would cut it off after a week, but I don't know then that we should be surprised that it's going to last, it would appear, into week 2, because he's not there today, which means he's not practicing to start the week, which means he probably isn't playing Sunday.
Yeah, I thought he might be back this week, Sunday or Monday, and then he'd play, 20 snaps. Now, there is some precedent. Nick Bosa, he got 2 practices, Friday and Saturday, or Thursday and
Wasn't
Friday.
even that much.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he played 30 snaps.
He looked awesome.
He played 30 snaps. Now,
Yeah.
I would like to think that Chris Jones is on the level of Bosa, but one guy's 25, the other guy's 29. Chris Jones looks like he's in good shape, but there's a difference between looking like you're in shape and then you can't do anything.
Game shape is an entirely different beast.
And 5 years is difference. I don't know if you guys felt any difference from the age of 25 to 29. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But
I still feel like I'm 18, brother. I'm as spry as ever.
I wish. Man, I'm not gonna lie to you. I woke up this morning and I felt like I was 58. So I thought maybe. I just, the longer this goes, the more Chris Jones's legacy is going to be hurt, I think, depending upon what happens, how he performs. It puts so much more pressure on him to perform, because there's one thing that the casual fan does not take well, whether or not this reality, whether you agree with it or not, is if you look greedy or if you look like you're putting yourself above the team. And right now, if he holds out for 6 games, let's say that, the Chris Jones will not, he'll have a but or a however tag to his name. He was great, but what he did to end his career was not okay for Chiefs fans. I as much as I want the Chiefs to be super petty, because what I think Chris Jones is doing is petty.
What's petty about it, though?
Well, I just, as a team, like as a player, that to me bothers me as a player.
Okay.
That's what I don't care about the money. The money does not matter to me at all. Chris Jones, do what you want to get paid. The problem I have is your teammates. You're under contract. You're there. Play with your guys. Like that to me was the biggest thing that bugs me about Chris Jones holding out. Showing up to the game, sitting in a booth while you're watching your teammates win a game by 1. Like, that bothers me. It really does. Now, if he goes out and sacks the whole quarterback a whole bunch, signs a new deal with the Chiefs, he'll be forever remembered. But I don't think, if he doesn't sign a long-term deal, the Chiefs are going to do what's always they're going to do. They're going to do the smart thing. That means they're going to tag him at the end of the year, and they're just going to trade him. They're not going to do the whole, well, we tagged you for $17 million if he holds out long enough, right? And then his number goes down, obviously. Mm-hmm. Well, it's super cheap to pay Chris Jones, and you're going to do this whole entire thing next year. No, that's not going to happen. They're just going to tag him. They'll get, a late first-round pick, early second-round pick, and they'll move on. And then I wonder what Chiefs fans are going to remember Chris Jones. It's going to be great. Wow, he was great. However, the way it ended, people always remember how things end, not how things begin.
Can I ask an honest question here, though? How much does that matter?
I think, and I'll ask you this: if you talk about Tony Gonzalez to somebody, they're still upset after just what he said.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing. That's the only, in my mind, if he signs let's say he shows up in 4 weeks, plays, and the Chiefs trade him, my thought on Chris Jones will be that dude was a potential Hall of Famer, but the end of his career in Kansas City did not go well. That's how I will view Chris Jones.
It's probably different being a non-Chiefs
fan.
fan.
1,000%.
But
100%.
If he gets to a place where he's got a Hall of Fame discussion, I don't think anyone, any voter is going to say, yeah, well, he really angered the fans because of his hold. Like, I don't think anyone's going to say that. But if you're
it has absolutely affected how Chiefs fans see him now.
You guys are probably looking at it completely different than I'm looking at it.
And that's why
I agree.
And I wonder how much it matters for him, because for different guys, that matters differently.
You know something else? You want to know what his best chance of making the Hall of Fame is? Playing with the Chiefs.
Probably.
Because
winning Super Bowl.
Yeah, if he gets another
Super Bowl, team success.
Yeah, if he gets another Super Bowl and is dominant in another playoff run, he's gonna make the Hall of Fame. He's going to make the Hall of Fame. Because I think
I don't know.
He's gonna need. He's short a lot of, like, he's going to need to get to like 100 sacks.
I think there's a decent chance. He's already got what? He's already in the 60s, I believe. And if you think he's going to play 4 more years,
but he's only gone on to double digits once or twice. I'm sorry, twice.
Yeah, but to be in the discussion to make the Hall of Fame as a defensive player, you got to have 100 plus sacks, or you have to have won all of the individual honors.
Correct.
And Chris Jones hasn't done that. He's been an All-Pro, first team All-Pro once. He's been second team All-Pro 3 times. Like, there's no denying he's been one of the best players of his era. But to make the Hall of Fame, yeah, he's 35 sacks short of 100. He's gonna have to get there, and it wouldn't hurt to be
playing right now.
Yes, and to have been the best defensive player on a team that won 3 rings.
And that's what he would be. Yeah. He would be that, no question. Coming up, K-State. I think K-State, if I'm a K-State fan right now, after what I saw Saturday, man, there's a game that I'm excited about after seeing. A lot of things can change, but I think K-State has a real good chance to have a special year. We'll get to the Cats coming up next. We will get to some college football here, and we'll talk with Matt Verderame. We'll talk with hear from Andy Reid coming up. Get you plenty of NFL news. Go around the NFL, talk about some key games. But want to talk about the Cats. They took on the Trojans of Troy, and there was no Trojan horse heading into Bill Snyder Family Stadium. And if they did, K-State burned it. I don't want to put the cart before the horse here. If I'm a K-State fan, I'm going to go a little Fred White here. And if you can dream a little, because this K-State team just kicked the snot out of I think a 9-win Fun Belt team in Troy that could very well win 9 or maybe even 10 games. Troy is a veteran group, and they got smashed. The only reason the Trojans scored their 13 points is because they had one guy make 2 of the most ridiculous catches that I've seen in a while. And it was the same cat, both one-handed catches. The one where he jumped up in the air like 7 feet and then went like he was, go gadget arm.
Converted a 3rd and long.
Yeah.
I think that was their first scoring drive.
Yeah.
The field goal drive. And then he caught the touchdown one-handed as well. Yeah. Like those are 2 of the best plays anybody made in college football on Saturday. And it's how Troy sustained and scored
2 of their scoring
2 of their 3 scoring drives.
Like K-State shut down a running attack that's a pretty good running attack. And K-State, and I don't think I'm saying this, hyperbole. K-State put up 42, and I didn't think the offense was great. Was it okay? Was it good? Yes.
Yeah, it's not like they went out and averaged 8 yards a tote or just paid like. In fact,
but there was about 3 series in a row where they didn't do a whole lot.
They came out of the locker room, didn't do much. Yeah, they went up 14-0, and then the offense stalled for a little bit. Will Howard, I didn't think was at his best. Made one really bad decision, couple bad decisions on some deep balls, and one of them got picked. And they didn't run the ball great. Like they didn't overwhelm Troy. Chris Kleiman credited Troy's scheme, their front 7.
They're a decent team. There's a reason why they were at kickoff a 14.5-point dog.
No, I mean, they're a good team. They're definitely a good team. They're a good Sun Belt. The Sun Belt's a good league, and they're one of the best teams in it.
And that's why I look at that and I go, Will Howard, right? 21 of 32, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, ran for 2, ran for 41 yards. And we're saying, kind of an okay game.
Like a B+ game.
What? What are we talking? That Will Howard, man, I'll tell you what, if September of last year, Jake was saying this about Will Howard, 21 of 32, 250, responsible for 5 touchdowns, I would have looked like, what are you talking about, future Jake? What are you even thinking?
The most important thing for me, I think, that I took from this game for Kansas State is that they have found, assuming that Keegan Johnson can stay healthy, they have found 2 wide receivers of varying levels of experience who are legitimate playmakers down the field.
I think almost 3. I think you can include Jackson, Brooks, and Keegan Johnson.
Well, let me be more specific. Like, we know Phillip Brooks is a contributor.
Okay. Like he's a yak guy.
They have found 2 new contributors to that group when you factor in Keegan Johnson and Jaden Jackson. Yeah, plus RJ Garcia, who got involved too. That to me was my biggest offensive question going into the year, is just what would that wide receiver room look like? Because we know what Sinnott is. We know what the running backs are. We know what Howard is. We know what the offensive line is. Can you find enough other weapons vertically in the passing game who you can use? And I think Jackson and Johnson can absolutely be those guys. They will also be very easy for me to get backwards all season long.
I think that it might be too early to say K-State's got the best defense in the Big 12, but they're in the
conversation.
They are absolutely going to be in the conversation. They've got terrific depth at pass rusher. Khalid Duke, with his 2 sacks, like those are just pure speed.
Good bend too.
Yes,
bend.
he gets around the corner and he has violent intentions coming off the edge. Nate Matlack has played well. Brendan Mott had a sack. Usos Sayamalu is, he's delivering on the preseason hype. He looks terrific at nose tackle, as good as anybody the K-State has had. And they've had some really good ones at defensive tackle in recent years. Timmy Horn, Eli Huggins. Like they've had Trey Deshawn, like really good 3-4 nose guys. And Uso looks like he's as good, maybe could even be better than
he reminds me a lot of a Will Gary, Topeka High kid.
Sure.
Just an absolute anchor right in the middle of it that you ain't moving.
And the linebacker group looks to be outstanding. Desmond Purnell, Austin Moore, Daniel Green. They've got depth there too. Jake Clifton's hurt, but I know that's going to add some depth. And then there was a little concern going into this season for me. The biggest area of concern for me was the secondary. Like, what's the secondary going to look like? They lost 2 NFL defensive backs. They lost their cornerbacks. They're 2 starting corners.
Really, really good corners.
Yeah. What is this going to look like? And I'm high on Jacob Parrish, but I think Jacob Parrish is legitimately excellent as a true sophomore. And Will Lee, holy smokes.
He was good. Man, he was mixing it up right near the line of scrimmage with some tackles.
Reminding me of Julius Brents a little bit, the physicality with which he plays, and then he jumped that route and had the pick. Marquise Siegel brought an element of physicality in his first game. Kobe Savage, VJ Payne are known quantities, I think, in that defensive backfield. This is an potentially outstanding defense. It's going to win them a lot of football games. We got a texter in from the 316 on the text line who agrees. Good in the defensive backfield for sure. Line is good. Linebackers are special. Austin Moore just makes every play.
Yeah.
Man, he's always around the ball.
Yeah. I thought K-State looked really, really good to hang 42.
They looked fast.
They
That's
did.
the other thing. They looked fast.
And to the point now where they're only a 4.5-point favorite over Missouri. And I'll ask you this. What am I missing? What am I missing right now?
Mizzou just beat Middle Tennessee State by 4. And maybe that was a classic look-ahead game, and they're looking for revenge, and they're going to be at home.
And maybe that's it. First road game for Kansas State. Maybe something of that. But the one thing, and Chris Kleiman has said this in the post game, we wanted to be ready for this game. We weren't last year against Tulane. Like, this is a coach who knows how to really push the right buttons for a winner. And this is a team that's got a lot of people back outside of about 4, to be honest with you. You know, they lost Deuce. They lost, the NFL guys. That's really what they lost. They lost 4 NFL guys. And everybody else is back. And I don't know why. And Mizzou's O-line is not good. Now, Mizzou's defense is good. Maybe that's the reason why it's only a 4.5-point spread right now.
If you've got some questions about K-State right now, it might be, you would have expected them to come out with more than 4 yards of rush against Troy. And some of that is they were juggling the offensive line on the fly. Unfortunately, Christian Duffy, I don't think he's going to make Mizzou. He's back to practice. Chris Kleiman pointed that out. But I don't know, probably more likely than not, he doesn't play against Missouri, you'd have to say at this point. And that means they've got to reshuffle the whole offensive line.
Cooper Beebe playing right tackle.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that's impressive that he can do that.
Yeah, the backup right tackle, Carver Willis, was
getting carved.
Yeah, it was a problem. They had to move Beebe to right tackle. And that means, that's their best solution because they've got more experience on the interior than go to Andrew Leingang at a guard spot or Taylor Poitier at a guard spot. And those guys have played before and a little more football than Carver Willis has. So that's probably their best solution. And I would expect they would drill that and be prepared to start that way going into next week. And that bit of in-game continuity, I think, helps the run game. I think the run game will be fine. We saw Treshaun Ward do something like not safe for work to a Troy safety in the open field on the first drive of the game. DJ Giddens, it wasn't his best game, but still has that ability to be kind of the thumper and get you 4 or 5 yards at a tote. I think they're going to be just fine. Like I don't have a lot of real concerns about this team right now. I think we kind of know who they are.
One quick comment about the Missouri game. So a couple different ways to look at how you might want to bet on this game or predict this game at the very least. So the line opened at 1.5. K-State favored by 1.5.
I got it at 2 last week.
It is currently at BetMGM 5.5.
It's already gone up moving a point today.
Multiple points by the
day. 4.5 this morning.
It's still 4.5 at FanDuel. So again, if you're not beholden to one book, shop. Anyway, that line is moving a ton. And I can tell you right now that the other thing, where was it? Here we go. Bill Connolly of ESPN, when he does his SP plus numbers, his advanced metric, he's got K-State by 10 in this game. SP plus has K-State 30-20, which is as far as advanced numbers go, and Bill Connolly's numbers.
That would hit the over, if I'm not mistaken. Like the over in this game is only like 49.
It has also dropped. It's now 46.5.
Yeah, like Mizzou's got a defense. Their defensive line is good. I think might be a low scoring game because K-State's defense, like the amount of tackles for loss that they got and the sacks, it's impressive.
They're fundamentally sound. Their schemes sound.
Yeah.
When they didn't get beat, like flat beat on a lot of plays. There was one long run. There were a couple of really good contested, like the one-handed catches that Troy was making.
Tight end over the top.
But there wasn't a lot of plays where you felt like, man, Kansas State, like they had guys in the wrong spot. They got out-schemed. They missed tackles on the perimeter. They really haven't done a lot of that. Like 2 games in, you count the number of like whiffed tackles, one hand, maybe.
I look at this and I look at their schedule, and they're going to be favored in every game until November 4th. I think there's an okay chance that K-State's literally 8-0 going into Texas. And I think there's a decent chance that Texas could be 8-0 going into that game as well.
They went to Tuscaloosa and won handily. What game are they going to lose?
So
I mean, I know this is Texas we're talking about, and
Oklahoma, I do think is they have to play Oklahoma before that. But I like what I saw Saturday against the Troy team that is not SEMO and is not. I mean, I hope K-State stays healthy, and maybe Texas Tech not as good as we thought. Oklahoma State barely got by Arizona State.
Man, I don't want to hear a word about Oklahoma State's schedule. No, they suck.
No, they're playing 3 quarterbacks still. You can't be good and play 3 quarterbacks. You can't. It's not possible.
So K-State should be favored by 2 touchdowns over Oklahoma State.
What I'm saying. Like, UCF has got a mobile quarterback.
Not for now. He's probably not playing when they play K-State. He's out for several weeks.
Yeah, really? John Reese Plumlee got hurt.
Knee?
John Rice Plumlee got leg injury towards the end of the. Yeah, I was watching that game and I missed it.
Yeah, he ain't going to play that game.
Good win for UCF, by the way, going up and winning on the Smurf turf. That's a good win.
That is a game that every fan of both of those programs is going to pretend it never happened. Very unenjoyable football.
It was really gross.
I don't care.
Right? A win's a win. No, you're right.
That's a good win for UCF. It really is.
Yeah, Malzahn announced that today it is going to be several weeks.
Oh, well, then K-State's going to take care of business against UCF. So that's why
his schedule lines up really favorably for K-State.
I mean, UCF, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech, I think
in Lubbock.
That could be a tough one.
I don't think that Tech is worse than we thought, so much as this is maybe last year's good luck in close games coming back a little bit on them. This might be.
You could argue they played the 2 toughest games out of any team in the Big 12 on the road at Wyoming and then home against Oregon. That's a difficult schedule.
Last year, we talked about how one of the things that was working against Texas Tech and made their success so impressive was the fact that they kept using different quarterbacks and they just kept rotating through guys and guys getting hurt. Remember Donovan Smith, who's now at Houston, and Tyler Shuck got hurt early.
They had the freshman, Morton.
Yeah.
Baron Morton.
Maybe that made them better because Tyler Shuck has all the physical talent you could want. In terms of football IQ, he might be a moron. He does not ever make good decisions.
No.
Ever. And I saw on Twitter this weekend and elsewhere too, a bunch of Oregon fans watching that game because he started his career at Oregon. And it was a shock when he left. We were like, yeah, this is the Tyler Shuck we had in Eugene. It's the one you had for 2 weeks before he got hurt last year. This is just what he is. So everything else for Texas Tech might be just as good. But if you have a guy calling the shots who doesn't know what he's doing, that's not going to, you might lose a 1-score game against a good team at home.
We got a lot more to get to. We'll talk about KU and their win against Illinois in the Brendan Dworzynski Bowl. We will get to that, plus a little more updates on the Big 12. Got good, bad, and ugly. We'll talk with Matt Verderame. A lot to get to on this edition of 580 Sports. Sports Talk, hour number 2 on this Monday. And it is a victory Monday because K-State taking care of victories over the weekend. How about that? K-State started hot last year. KU started hot now 2 years in a row. Man, I am so looking forward to November 18th. Man, when was the last time that game between KU and K-State will mean as much as it will this year?
Last year? Pretty significant last year. KU had a chance to, I mean, they were a obviously better team.
Yeah.
You felt like they went into last year's game with a puncher's chance, which you haven't really felt about that game in some years. So, but certainly there's a chance for even higher stakes.
Yeah.
Sure. If that's your point, I don't mean to walk on your point.
No, that's what because I think KU, and we're going to talk about the Hawks here and the rest of the Big 12 before we got the weekend recap. I'm excited for you guys to drop this knowledge on me about what Cole Reagans did. I've done a nice job of refraining for it. So you guys should,
that's good.
You should say, hey, kudos to you, Jake.
Excited for this reveal. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It is. Is it fun or is it like bad?
It's like morbidly funny.
Morbidly funny.
It's more than I would have been willing to say about it.
Yeah. It's
interesting. It's noteworthy. You've never seen it before.
I'm certain you've never seen it before.
It's not like he's not hurt, is he?
No, he's not hurt.
Okay. He didn't do anything like inappropriate, did he?
No.
I like Cole Reagans. I don't want him to.
Well, no, he didn't
he took off his
get
pants
naked at a bar or
mooned the
something.
umpire.
Okay.
Got ejected.
Okay.
No, it
That'd
just
be
was
wild.
a baseball thing that
Okay. All right.
is.
Because he's like the one bright spot that the Royals have pitching wise right now. Okay.
By the way, speaking of K-State, can you name the last single digit final score game between KU and K-State?
09?
No, because that was when. No,
09 was single digits, but there's been one more recently.
Oh gosh, was it? No, it was still.
It was like 3 year ago.
Yeah, was it Snyder's last year?
It was indeed Snyder's last year, 21-17.
Yeah,
that game was so bad.
Yeah,
I missed that one. I was in Oklahoma with Washburn basketball.
No, because they had a chance to win, and then they fumbled it at the end. KU fumbled it at the end, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was a disastrous game. Everybody sucked. Peyton Bender played for KU. That was honestly 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. That might have been his best game at KU.
But he did something real bad he fumbled at the end of the game. Or he did something bad, and then K-State got the ball. They had a chance to win. They were on K-State territory, if I'm not mistaken.
2nd and 10 at the K-State 32, down by 4. Bender got sacked and fumbled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew it was something like to the point where they had a chance there, and it was a close one.
Yeah, that game was really stinky.
Real bad.
Can you guess who started for Kansas State that day, by the way?
Was that an Alex Delton start?
That wasn't an Alex Delton start.
That's TCU legend Alex Delton.
Yeah.
God, remember all that time debating Skylar Thompson and Alex Delton.
Yeah.
So Peyton Bender, by the way, he didn't get sacked in the traditional sense and fumble.
It was like a scramble, and then he just lost the ball.
No, you're being a little too nice. He was just winding up to throw on his drop back, and it just fell out of his hand. And then he fell down and couldn't pick it up, and K-State recovered.
We'll get to.
I'm so thankful that we are beyond this. So thankful that we are beyond this.
We're going to talk with Matt Verderame. We'll recap the weekend, but the NFL was some good, some bad.
A lot of sloppy.
A lot of rain. Didn't go, real too smooth. There were a couple good games in the second window, the 3 o'clock games. We'll recap that with Matt Verderame, get his thoughts on the Chiefs, the Lions, Chris Jones, Kadarius Toney, all that coming up. But the Hawks took care of business early, and then kind of an inverse of the game against Most State, where they started out a little sluggish and then really took care of business at the end. This one was the opposite. Started out like gangbusters and then didn't look great towards the end. And I wonder if some of that wasn't, Lance Leipold pulled an Andy Reid and just said, all right, let's just hold on and win this thing.
He had 2 turnovers that squashed what were looking like scoring drives. That certainly was was unfortunate. It was just one of those drives ending points. It's a lot more comfortable there at the end. But, I mean, give Kansas's defense credit for coming up with the turnover at the very end. Lasser had the interception off the tip drill and sealed the game. I think that I think Ryan Nanny of the Messenger, and the Messenger is a whole new thing. It's like a new website. They got a bunch of like really smart sports writers, like Seth Davis and Jeff Goodman are doing their college basketball. So this is a website.
Are they really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wait, they left? Seth Davis left the Athletic?
I think he did to write for the Messenger.
No
So
kidding?
this is a website we're going to need to know, and we'll probably reference.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
their,
brand new.
for their
Goodman
sports
left
coverage.
Action Network?
Stadium, yeah.
Or Stadium, whatever.
Seth Davis is now doing hoops for CBS Sports and The Messenger. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was Ryan Nanny of the Messenger who pointed out that one thing that Kansas has been much better about doing under Lance Leipold, that for years they were not very good at doing, is not putting themselves in a first half hole, and in fact putting other teams in a first half hole. Like when you bank a 28-7 halftime lead, that's what it was, right? 28-7 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
You bank that, a lot has to go wrong for you to lose that football game. So Kansas is doing a better job, and it's laid out really well in the article if you find it and read it. They're doing a much better job of playing well early in games and not burying themselves where the second half you're just playing out the string. And in this particular instance, they played a brilliant first half, and Jalen Daniels bailed KU out of some spots with some just unbelievable playmaking. And they went in the locker room with a 21-point halftime lead. And if you're a halfway decent team, that is not something you let slip.
Mm-hmm.
And KU didn't. They didn't play a great second half, but they had a big enough lead it didn't matter.
I think KU has got dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the throws that Jalen Daniels made, because I rewatched that yesterday on Sunday. And some of the throws that Jalen Daniels uncorked and the wiggle out of there were terrific. Luke Grimm can play.
What I'm saying.
Luke Grimm can play.
He's a dude.
And then the dudest of all dudes is Devin Neal. You got a guy like Devin Neal will play in the NFL. Devin Neal's going to play in the NFL.
I mean, it's not really a bummer because he's going to get paid and going to be an NFL player, and it's so cool. He legitimately, if he stayed for one more year and played every game, like if he just doesn't get hurt, it's almost, I wouldn't say a certainty, but he would have a legitimate chance at being KU's all-time leading rusher.
Oh, no, he has a chance. If he stays after this year, he has a chance to go down as the KU great.
So
like Todd Reesing.
If he played through next season and KU went to a bowl both years, you need 76 yards a game on the ground.
Yeah. No, he's been good.
That's how good he is.
The question still remains up front. How do they do up front on the O-line? How do they do up front on the D-line? And then the one thing that KU right now, from what I can tell, doesn't quite have yet is depth. They can't get hurt. What you saw Jalen Daniels do in that game, Jason Bean cannot do. Okay, that's the difference.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's the
you can count on one hand the number of guys who can make some of the plays that Jalen Daniels
and I hope and the best part about that is they're not running him a whole lot. Like he's doing that on his own,
mm-hmm.
and that to me is a benefit. We also saw Will Howard. He only ran really 4 times in the game. One was on third down. Situationally, specifically run them. And that's why if they can just stay healthy, Highshaw and Neal, terrific. Grimm, really good. I think Arnold is above average.
The trio of Grimm, Arnold, and Skinner, and plus Trevor Wilson's played really well through 2 weeks. That's not just like, they're good enough to play. No, that's a legitimately good group.
And the up front, how do they handle it? Now, they will destroy Nevada. Nevada lost to directional Idaho.
Well, they just lost to regular Idaho.
Well, that's just as bad.
They were picked 5th in the Big Sky
and beat Nevada by 4 touchdowns.
Yeah,
4 touchdowns in Reno.
Yeah, it was bad, real bad, Clark.
Shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. And that man might have been Nevada's head coach.
Yeah, they're not going to need Austin Booker or Kobe Bryant for the first half of this next one, which is good because they're not going to have either of them for the first half of this one. Because they got thrown out for two of the weirder targeting calls. Let's be charitable.
I do want to bring up Booker real quick, though, just while we're talking about like dudes. All off season and into this past week, right? It was, does KU have the physicality to play with a team like Illinois? Now, I think it is important to say Illinois probably not as good as we thought they were going to be.
Correct.
Like, they're not bad. Like, you beat a Big Ten team that's still good, and Illinois still got size. They're going to take a step back from where they were last year, I think. The whole Big Ten West is horrible division. But I thought the offensive line played really well. I thought the defensive line played better than I could have ever hoped for. Jeremy Robinson, who Dan's been on hot to start this year, he's been really good. Devin Phillips, my guy, has been really good. Austin Booker put together one of the best defensive line games from a KU player I've seen since Dorrance Armstrong's sophomore season. I mean, he was incredible. And it's ridiculous he got tossed for tackling when he didn't even hit the guy with his head.
You can see the side of his helmet.
Like, it's ridiculous.
How do you miss that?
He hit him too hard. Like, the way it looked and the fact that Luke Altmaier was slow to get up is the reason he got tossed.
You can slow it. Like, I can see how that would be bad live where they're like, whoa.
Yeah,
but then you can slow it down. You're like,
and the fact that
targeting.
Today they had their appeal denied. Like, they sent this to headquarters.
You're never going to win those.
It's ridiculous. But anyway.
It's kind of like, when the NFL officials tried to do the whole challenge, the pass interference rule, and it never occurred.
It just tried to make the coaches look like clowns. Yeah. But to have a guy like that who is obviously athletic, he had it was the first sack that he had in the game where Altmaier steps up in the pocket. Booker blows up the right tackle. Illinois' right tackle, by the way. He is going to go pro in something other than sports. Yikes. He gets blown off his spot, off his bearings, completely out of the play. Booker then twists on his own back inside, waits behind the guard who's just standing there, and then Altmaier ran right into him and got destroyed. That was one of the smartest, most athletic and impressive plays I've seen from a KU defensive player, maybe since I started covering the team. It was so impressive.
KU gets playing Nevada right now is a great situation because it's a
great scheduling.
Yeah, it's a bye week,
Jeff Long.
Which is perfectly fine.
Those dudes are getting after it, though. To wrap up that point about the defensive line, it has been, I think, the most encouraging aspect of the first two games, even beyond the wide receiver depth and even beyond Jalen Daniels being back to looking like Jalen Daniels in that game. The fact that they've got multiple guys who are making an impact on the pass rush. Even last year, like Lonnie Phelps was really good, but it was pretty much just Lonnie Phelps.
Yep.
Like if there was a play being made by somebody in that front four, it was him or it really wasn't anybody.
Right.
But they are having multiple guys have an impact and just bring energy, bring a high motor and make some plays, get to the quarterback. That is what is going to help this KU team improve from last year because it was their biggest bugaboo, the inability to get off the field on third down. When you have a pass rush, when you have multiple guys who can impact the quarterback on a third and long passing down, that's going to get you off the field a lot more. That's going to give Jalen Daniels, Devin Neal, and company a lot more opportunities.
And great time to have a bye week. And especially, I said the
Damn.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
Nah, dude, they stink. They're awful.
But you play Nevada, and then I've always said I thought Illinois was a big game. You got that one.
Mm-hmm.
The next biggest game is their first Big 12 game. It's against BYU, and BYU we're gonna find BYU has the opposite. BYU's got to go to Arkansas. They're playing at Arkansas this week. That ain't no Nevada, okay? That's Arkansas will hit you in the mouth. That is a big, strong, we love our O-lineman type of team. And then you got to travel back, and then you're coming back to KU. Now, BYU, I think is being a little underrated. BYU kicked the snot out of, I know, Southern Utah. They shut out Sam Houston. I know their first two wins are not, terrific. I understand that. But they got some guys, and the quarterback that they have, many of you know his name, Keaton Slovis, been around the block. Not a good block, but he's been around it. That's gonna if BYU goes to Arkansas and wins, that KU game is a huge one.
Yeah.
I mean, and I still think it's a big one regardless of whether or not they win or lose. But then you take on Texas. Like, you have a chance to be 4-0, feeling good, going to Texas, coming up on, I mean, September 30th might be could be,
I know you're going to say college game day, but no, they're taking up permanent residence following Coach Prime around.
They could.
Both of the
big
pregame
Saturday.
shows. Yeah, they are fully in the tank.
They were still running ads that the Big Nude Saturday crew was going to be in Champaign for Penn State, Illinois, after they had announced on the fly online that they were moving to Boulder.
Yep.
The BYU KU game, by the way, they just announced it earlier today.
Oh, 2:30 kickoff. That's
2:30 kickoff, ESPN.
Big ESPN.
Yeah.
That's one of the featured games of that week.
That's right. They have. Yeah.
That is a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a very big deal.
Big game. Huge game. Because if you win that one, there's a chance you can maybe go 8-4 or even better. Like, if we don't think Oklahoma State's that good, Iowa State cheeks, they're bad. And then
their quarterback is sorry.
And then it comes down to,
hey, that quarterback is the son of St. Louis Battlehawks coach Anthony Becht. Let's show a little respect for the Battlehawks.
I wondered if they were related.
So I got a text from a buddy of mine during that game about a fan in the stands who may or may not have been related to that quarterback, Rocco Becht. So I rewound, and they showed a picture of his family in the crowd. I was like, oh my God, that's Anthony Becht. That's not the family member my friend told me to look at, but that is, it was like, hey, it's Anthony Becht.
Real quick, team that either one has impressed you or has not in the Big 12.
Texas should run the table. Just on paper now, I think we can say that if you go to Tuscaloosa and you do that to Alabama, there is not a game on their schedule that they should lose.
Yeah.
They did not upset Alabama. Upset implies that the outcome was maybe a mistake, maybe would not happen if you played the game 10 times. Texas was better than Alabama. They were better in the trenches.
Bama ain't Bama, right?
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
we need to point that out.
There is a larger discussion to be had about
like,
where did the pipeline go for Alabama in the trenches? Why is this what they have at quarterback? Like,
he made one good throw.
He throws every ball 100 miles an hour, 8 feet
throw.
over his receivers.
Now that throw was a bucket throw.
Yes.
But that was it. Two
abominably bad interceptions that Jalen Milroe threw. But no, that was not a mistake. Texas had better wide receivers, playmakers in the secondary. Like, I'm used to Alabama's secondary just shutting everybody's water off. They had nothing for A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy and Jatavian Sanders. Had nothing for those guys. They had no kind of pass rush that could bother Quinn Ewers. They had no kind of offensive lineman that could keep Texas's mountain-sized defensive linemen out of the backfield. Texas was better than Alabama in every way that a football team can be better than another football team. And if that's the case, you can go dog walk Bama, which is what they did. They bled the last
in the
7
half.
minutes of that game off the clock. Just took Alabama's soul. It does not happen. If you do that, there's not a game on your schedule you should lose. Now, this is Texas we're talking about. And Texas's reputation has been that they will find ways to lose games that they should not lose.
Like Alabama last year at home.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think we can say that the talent level for Texas is really and truly, and we saw proof of concept of it on Saturday, it is at a level where they should not lose. They should go 12-0 and win the Big 12 championship game. Like, on paper, they will be favored every game the rest of the way unless there's some kind of injury, and they should win all the rest of the games. They should beat everybody else.
But they're going to lose the game.
Because that's kind of in Texas's DNA, right? That's what we think, right?
It's hard to go 12-0.
It's hard to go 12-0 unless you are that team.
Yeah.
It's hard to go 12-0, and you need a lot of breaks. You know, TCU went 12-0 last year to go to the title game. They needed a lot of breaks to happen.
Texas isn't going to need that many breaks.
Well, I don't think
TCU was probably not a 12-win roster. This is a 12-win roster for Texas.
The team, Texas is obviously at the top of the list. I think KU, after that Illinois performance, is at the top of the list. I'm going to give credit to Cincinnati because they beat a Pitt team. I think on
I
the
didn't
road,
think they'd win that one.
I didn't think they would
like
win.
A 9-point dog.
And Pitt is probably not great, but that That's a better win for Cincinnati than I thought they were going to get.
How did they be the worst
They
team?
were up 21-0 at one point in that game.
Yeah.
They jumped out, and I know they only won by 6 at the end, but they were in control of that game. Emory Jones has played well through 2 weeks. Maybe there's something cooking there in Cincinnati. I'm willing to say that they might be a little better than I thought.
I'm gonna go Houston. You lost to Rice.
They lost to a side dish.
They lost to Rice.
Rice did everything in its power to give that game back.
Yeah.
Also Baylor. Baylor got screwed at the end of their game.
Yeah.
Screwed like a Phillips head. I mean, that was a joke. Officials swallowing their whistle.
Correct.
But they also gagged it.
You can't get beat by Texas State by by two
scores.
2
points,
yeah. But I mean, they should have beat Utah.
They should have won.
And that's why I'm not too overly concerned about Utah, whereas Houston squeaked by UTSA, and then, man, you're getting rolled by a side dish, and then you got lucky a little bit later. So I think Houston, that's not good. By the way, Baylor will get a win. They play Long Island coming up. Coming up next, we've got our good, bad, and ugly here on 580. The good, the bad, and the ugly here quickly before we get to Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated. Alrighty, my good. I'm gonna go with what I saw Friday night. Man, the Washburn Rural defense. They were awesome. Yeah. I cannot stress this enough. I was so impressed with the rural defense with about 8 different guys on that defense. I'm going to tell you what, if you don't have anything going on the 22nd and you want to watch a good physical high school football game, go to Bowen Glaze Stadium. Manhattan versus Washburn Rural. Going to be a terrific game. Terrific game.
And if you can't make it out there, you can listen to that game.
Do both. I was so impressed with
on our airwaves.
That was my good.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. My good was just I don't know how many of these I'm going to get this year, but that was one of the best football weekends your boy possibly could have had. Because we had an awesome game Friday with Washburn Rural beating DeSoto. Some incredible individual performances. KU wins over Illinois. That was awesome. And then the Packers stole the Bears' lunch money, shoved them in a locker, and then banged on it all day long and just embarrassed them. It was awesome. It was great. Those dudes talked all summer about how this was their time and they were going to finally win a game for the first time in 5 years.
Who is
the Packers.
they?
The Bears.
Bears. Okay.
Bears players. Not even their doofus fans. Their players were talking about it.
Doofus fan.
They have a defensive tackle, Justin Jones, who had a whole thing about how he hates Green Bay and the Packers aren't any good and Jordan Love is going to stink, yada, yada. Guess how many stats he put up, how many categories he had something other than a 0 in. None of them. Not a single one.
What was your good?
Good from the weekend for me on Sunday. Went to Maple Hill with my wife to celebrate her great aunt's 90th birthday. 90 years young for my wife's great aunt Maxine. It was at the Maple Hill Senior Center, and a lot of family, but also a lot of community members came out because old Maxine's been a part of that community for a long time, and it was really neat to be able to celebrate. I told my wife, I said, you know, if I am blessed enough to make it to 90, there are not going to be this many people at my birthday party. I can tell you that right off the rip.
Man, I don't even know if I want to get to 90, man.
Nah, I'll tell you, Maxine makes 90 look a lot of fun. I'll tell you what.
There are some of the people who do.
She's having a good time. They were line dancing. I mean, it was a fun time. And so salute to my wife's great aunt. Happy 90th birthday.
Bad for the weekend. Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, you were garbage. You and your tiny hands. I don't know if that's a thing. Like, if it really does matter, like small hands, wet football in the NFL, I don't know if that's a thing. Maybe we need to go back and look on all weather games to see how old Joey Cool does. But he stinks. Like, he was so bad.
I wouldn't say he stinks. He stunk. I don't think he.
He was terrible.
Yeah, that game he did. Yeah.
But I don't know. Is that a thing? Is it small hands, wet football? I don't know.
I mean, the combine wants to make us believe that's a problem, but
well, now that we know, and I don't know how many games. Let's say he's played 10 games in bad weather, and all 10 games he stinks.
No, maybe there's something.
Maybe he's just bad weather.
There's a reason he wore a glove on his offhand yesterday. My bad was Jeff Lebby bringing Art Briles onto the field after Oklahoma's game against SMU this weekend, and then saying, "Well, it's my father-in-law. He's grandfather of my 2 kids, so he was with the family," and being really indignant about it. And then Brent Venables obviously being upset, and Joe Castiglione obviously being upset. And then Lebby today came out with some PR nonsense statement about how it won't happen again.
He was forced to do that.
Well, I know. No, that's why it was PR nonsense.
Joe Castiglione was like, if you want to keep working here, you need to do this.
But you know what? The bad is Oklahoma. You know what you got into. Lebby's got that stink all over him. You knew this was going to happen if you're Oklahoma. Get Art Briles away from football. Get him away from polite society.
He looks rough, too.
Good.
What do you got, Dan?
My bad. And we talked about at the top of the show, just kind of the quality of football, particularly in the noon games. And it was just not real good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, football's back, but like somebody should have told the teams, it was week 1. Somebody should have told the teams and the coaches that football was back.
You got it ugly?
Yeah, I do. So Cole Reagan.
Okay. Oh no. What happened
so
here?
Cole Reagan started out really well. Okay. 5 2/3 scoreless to start the game.
2 out, nobody on in the 6th, so 2-0 ball game.
Okay.
And walked the guy.
That's okay.
3-2 count, walked him.
It happens. That's fine.
And then he walked another guy.
Okay.
Again on a 3-2 count.
Okay.
His 5th walk of the game at the time.
Yeah, a little problem with control.
Okay.
So 1st and 2nd, 2 outs. Cole Reagan's then on a pitch in the next at bat, fell off the mound, threw the ball about 9 feet over Salvador Perez's head, and it was a wild pitch. Everybody advances. On the next pitch, he threw another wild pitch 9 feet over Salvador Perez's head.
What happened?
And then, after the second wild pitch scored a run to make it 2-1, he fell off the mound again and threw a 3rd consecutive wild pitch and allowed the tying run to score.
I just watched it. What?
It's like,
was there a break in the Matrix?
Remember in Angels in the Outfield where the angel hits the pitcher as he's going into his windup and the pitcher does like a million spins and the ball goes flying into the first base dugout? This is the closest thing in a baseball game I think we've ever seen to that.
What happened?
He threw 3 consecutive wild pitches and fell off the mound twice.
It's almost like is he throwing this game? Like, because they were up 2-0.
He ain't killed it. Like, there's no other, like,
they went out to check the mound afterward. Like he must have kept getting a spike caught. Because it'd be one thing if he were just airmailing Salvador Perez by 9 feet. The fact that he fell down twice tells you he was getting a spike hooked.
Yeah.
This is wild.
I didn't hear anything from either of the Royals TV or radio broadcast. I did hear Dan Schulman on Blue Jays TV, though. He and his partner could not believe it. They were shocked. Like, they didn't even celebrate them scoring. They just were in stunned
It's
silence.
like when the Monstars stole all the talent. You're like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was
wild.
incredible.
Yeah. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Matt Verderame on all things NFL. Talking all things NFL with our NFL insider. He is Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated, SI.com. Does a fantastic job. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, first question. What happened Thursday night? How do you break that one down? Is it just simply Tony couldn't catch it, or do the Chiefs have more underlying issues?
I was at that game up in the press box covering it, and I would tell you that, listen, I think a lot of times we shy away from the most simple explanation because we feel like it makes us sound dumb. Yeah, you can't drop 9 passes in a game. Like that'll do it. It's like in basketball, if you miss 15 free throws and lose by 2. I mean, you could point to the guy who shot 1 of 5 from downtown, but like, if you hit a free throw, you win the game. I thought in that game, defense played really well. Special teams was perfect. Didn't miss any kicks. Didn't take a lot of penalties. Thought the offensive line was very good. The biggest things that came out of that game were, one being a fluke, which was they're not going to drop that many passes in the game. The other one, which is concerning, and has been a problem with them for a long time, they cannot pick up 3rd and short. And it just is over and over. And I asked Andy Reid about it after the game. are you ever going to consider going back to a quarterback sneak? And he mentioned that he felt like they'd worked on short yardage, but he completely neglected to answer the part about the sneak. I just think at some point you've got to go back to a quarterback sneak on third one, but they've shown no interest in doing that.
Is it because the O-line is not as good as we think? Like a part of me is like, oh gosh, this Chiefs O-line is great. They're so good. Look at these three interior guys. They're maulers. They're huge. Well, then why don't they just run ISO off of, Trey Smith's back or hand it off right up the center to Pacheco? Like, if you're so good, you should be able to get a yard.
I agree, but I would say that they are that good on the offensive line. They have a great offensive line. They don't do that. A lot of times with the Chiefs, if you look at their third and shorts, they either try to sneak with Blake Bell, which might be the worst play in football. Like, it really, for as astoundingly great of a coach as Andy Reid is, that might legitimately be the worst third and short play in football. And they do it all the time. And on Thursday night, they got Bell under center and they tried to run a little surprise off of it with Rashee Rice on a jet sweep, which in theory is great. The problem is when you have 9 or 10 guys at the line of scrimmage for the defense, I don't care how fast you are, you're not going to get the corner. There's just not enough guys. You can't block enough guys. So, look, I think their problem is a lot of times on those third and shorts, they don't run conventional plays. They're very, very unique, if you want to use a kind word, in the way that they attack it. A lot of times they either throw the ball or they run those unconventional sneaks. I think it's just high time they get back to understanding, hey, look, what happened to Patrick Mahomes 4 years ago on a sneak is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. He is not going to get hurt every time he dives for a foot. And I think they need to start getting over this idea that they just have to go that route. They don't have to go that route. But also on third and short, a couple times they dropped balls. They had a couple drops. So I really do think, look, if they play that game over 10 times and the Chiefs have 2 drops, they win every single one of those games. They couldn't hold on to the football.
Defensively, without Chris Jones, how did they hold up?
Great. They were great. I mean, look, the Lions are a top 5 offensive team in a lot of categories from a year ago. And they added some talent to that group, and they added Jahmyr Gibbs. They added Montgomery in there. Now, granted, he was replacing Jamal Williams, but they added Laporta, second-round tight end. The Chiefs held them down. I mean, the Chiefs did not allow them to run the ball. The Chiefs were very good against the pass. Goff, I think, threw for like 240, but it was a 240 where his yards per attempt was not high. It was in the 60s. I thought the Chiefs did a really nice job. I mean, they affected Goff on some throws, even when they weren't blitzing. They did a nice job. When they did blitz, they were very effective. They gave up 14 points on defense. I mean, look, let's be honest. The turning point of that game was Tony dropping a pass that was right in his hands and tipping it up in the air, and Brian Branch saying, thank you very much, and running 50 yards for a touchdown. Because at that point, the Lions had 1 touchdown, and they were going nowhere. I mean, their drives had consistently been 3 and out. They'd been pinned back. And even after that, the defense consistently held them. The offense just could not get going. And then, of course, late, the defense gets a really big stop on 4th down near midfield. I think everybody in the building kind of felt like, okay, now the Chiefs are going to win the game. And the first down play was the one where they hit Tony on the deep cross, where, looking from the press box, from my perspective, he would have run for another 15, 20 yards. And he drops the ball. I mean, if he catches that pass, unless you think Butker's missing a pretty easy goal, they win. But it is what it is. They lost, and now they go to Jacksonville for a very important game.
Yeah, I don't want to get into Chris Jones because no one knows what's going to happen there. So let's talk about Jacksonville. That's a Jags offense that's got a lot of weapons. Now that you add Calvin Ridley, this now low-key becomes a pretty big game for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and ring a bunch of alarm bells. I know they'd be 0-2. I get it. They could still go 12-5 and win the division, be a 1 seed. But they do need to win this game from the standpoint of not putting themselves in a hole. They got lucky on Sunday. Chargers lost. Cincinnati lost. Somebody's going to lose tonight between the Bills and the Jets. I mean, the Chiefs are going to be fine no matter how this week shakes out. They're going to walk out of this going, okay, Chargers are the only team in the AFC West who's even going to be halfway decent other than the Chiefs, and they lost the home game in the conference game. The Bengals look 10 times worse than the Chiefs looked, and they lost the divisional game. So if you're Kansas City, like, you got a big break. I mean, you really almost got this week erased for you. But now You go to Jacksonville, you may get Travis Kelce back. We have no idea what's going on with Chris Jones. I'm assuming he's not going to play at this point. But you play a Jacksonville team that last year you handled defensively twice. I mean, you did a really nice job against. Now, you don't have Chris Jones potentially this time. You don't have Frank Clark. You don't have Carlos Dunlap. Now, Felix and DK Uzama played well. He looked good. Mike Dana looked good. So maybe you can get by. You have Drew Tranquil this time around, some other pieces in the secondary. But the Chiefs had nice game plans for Trevor Lawrence. He did not do a lot in either game last year. So if you're Kansas City, you have that confidence. And look, they're 3-point favorite on the road for a reason. Like, they're better, even without Chris Jones. But they need to execute a lot better. And they're going against a Jaguars team that is banged up. Cam Robinson suspended. Brandon Sheriff got hurt yesterday. May not play this week. We'll see. There are going to be some opportunities for that defense to do some work up front.
We're chatting with Matt Verderame, as we do every Monday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt joining us to talk all about the NFL on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Go check out his work in Sports Illustrated and at SI.com, as well as on Twitter at Matt Verderame is where you can follow him there. Matt, let's look at the positive here from around the rest of the NFL. What team or which teams stand out to you the most as being the most impressive in Week 1?
Oh, I mean, it's got to be Dallas and San Francisco. I mean, those two teams. The Giants. I mean, the Giants could have gotten beaten 80-0 last night. You would have felt the same about that game. I mean, that's the only time I can remember. I hate admitting this is my job. I fell asleep during part of the game. I was sitting there and it was 26-0, and then I woke up and kind of panicked for a second. And I looked at and I was like, oh, it's 33-0. I guess I didn't miss much. I mean, the Giants, it couldn't do anything. It couldn't move the ball. It couldn't block. I picked Dallas to go to the Super Bowl, and you saw why last night. It's because of that defensive front. I mean, that's why. That team, when they are really cooking, you got a problem. And I am fascinated. I mean, they're going to play the Jets on Sunday. Obviously, we haven't seen the Jets yet, but that front against the Jets offensive line, good luck. If you can't block, you're done. And then the Niners, I'll throw my hand up in the air. I was one of those dopes who picked Pittsburgh in that game. I thought, you know what, Purdy coming back from the torn UCL, and Bosa, how good could he be? Right? Well, as it turns out, you knew that pick was wrong by the end of the anthem because it was 17-0 before you could blink. The Niners were great. The Steelers were awful. I think those two teams have to be, and then look, to a lesser degree because it was a very close game. Props to Tua, who went out and threw for almost 500 yards against the Chargers team that continues to remind you every time they play why they should have fired Brandon Staley in January. Tua was amazing. The rest of the team, look, they couldn't run. The defense wasn't good, but they could throw it, and Tua was absolutely fantastic.
On the flip side, teams that were not so great in Week 1 throughout the action yesterday. Obviously, the Giants are near the top of that list. Two of those other dopes who picked the Steelers are also here in the studio right now.
Hey,
so
man,
we're with you on that.
Not me. I picked the 49ers to cover. My bank account's happy about that.
I might have had a money line sprinkle on Pittsburgh, and I felt pretty dumb about that one about 4 minutes into the game. But who else really stunk up the joint yesterday, Matt?
Yeah, no, staying away from the teams we just mentioned, because obviously we could throw them in there. The Bengals have to be the team you look at. And I watched that game in the early window. And, we talked about the Chiefs. And the Chiefs, they lost. There's no moral victories in the NFL. But I actually thought, quite frankly, there was a lot of things to take out of that game. I thought the Chiefs did pretty well. That you'll walk away from, all right, look, if they don't drop a bunch of passes, they're going to be fine. That team, you could see why they're as good as they are. The Bengals were a disaster in that game. Now, I do not think the Bengals all of a sudden stink. I still, look, I'm picking them to win the division. I still pick them to win the division. I think they're going to be fine. They were awful. I mean, Burrow threw for 82 yards. They gave up over 200 on the ground, so they were one of them. We just talked about the Chargers. I don't know if a lot of people listening happened to actually watch the Chargers game. I don't know if you guys saw the end of the first half. They took one of the dumbest penalties in the history of mankind and gave up a field goal because of it, where it was 17-17, and the Dolphins threw a ball that literally was going to land at the Chargers' 25-yard line with time expiring to go to halftime. And J.C. Jackson, for reasons I still don't understand, just belted the Dolphins receiver like a good second before the ball came down. 3 flags get thrown on him. They kick a field goal. Well, the Chargers ended up losing by 2 points. So that wasn't great. And then the other team I would toss out there, even though it wasn't a blowout or anything, Denver if anybody thought Sean Payton was going to go in there and just automatically fix Russell Wilson, I would tell them to watch that game. Because while Russell Wilson completed a bunch of passes, they were all to backs and tight ends about 2 yards away from the line of scrimmage. So to lose at home and score 16 points against the Raiders, who I think by the end of the year probably going to have one of the 3 worst defenses in football, that's a rough day. And then they certainly had one in Mile High.
Matt Verderame is our guest, covers the National Football League for Sports Illustrated, joining us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, as he does every Monday on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, the Los Angeles Rams carved up the Seattle Seahawks, and thank you for not mentioning the Seahawks as a team that looked bad. I appreciate you sparing my feelings, even if you didn't mean to. But I want to talk about the Rams because I want to talk about Matthew Stafford. In a conference where the quarterbacks are not as great as they are in the AFC, could a healthy Matthew Stafford be an X factor to get the Rams, once they get Cooper Kupp healthy, back in contention for a playoff spot? Is he a ceiling raiser if he's as healthy and as good as he looked yesterday?
He is. He's the guy that throughout the entire offseason, whenever I was doing quarterback ranks, I kept debating, top 10, is he in it? And I would always trade off with him and Dak as 10 and 11. Like, they were always there. And I was like, well, because I think Dak's going to bounce back big this year, although really he did not play great on Sunday. It just didn't matter. Yeah, Stafford absolutely is the kind of guy who, look, he can throw you. He can make throws most guys can't. Stafford is also the kind of guy, though, however, he will have a handful of games this year where he throws 3 picks because that's just how he is. He's kind of like a Brett Favre of the modern age where he'll make some unbelievable throws and he'll have a few throws he wants to get back. But, overall, look, I have major reservations about the Rams. I just think in the end, they're very limited in their roster. But I will give them credit. I mean, they went in. I thought Seattle would roll in that game. Geno Smith was held down, really did not take a bunch of shots down the field at all. Give the Rams credit. I will say, though, and not just about this game, but about all these games, week 1 is very weird every year. I think people sometimes make these sweeping judgments. I remember a couple of years ago, Sam Darnold played well like the first 2 weeks of the year for the Panthers, and people literally were talking about him being the MVP of the league. And he was replaced by P.J. Walker in like week 7. So I would tell people, breathe a little bit. Like, if you're a Chiefs fan and you're freaking out, or you're a Bengals fan and you're freaking out, these teams are fine. They're going to be fine. They're going to win 12 or 13 games. And then you get these random teams like the Raiders. The Raiders are all alone on top of the AFC West. The Raiders are winning like 5 games. It's just, it's bizarre. And that's what makes it fun. But yeah, I think you're going to see the NFL kind of return to normal here over the next couple of weeks.
Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. All right, game tonight, Bills and Jets. How do you make this one?
It's interesting. I actually like the Bills on the road. I know, and they're even slight favorites, I believe, on the line in Vegas. The question I have for the Bills is, you don't have Von Miller. Last year when they lost Von Miller, that defense went to the tank. I mean, they could not do anything. Can they do something this year without Von Miller? Because if Rodgers has all day to throw, then obviously it becomes a completely different football game. I do, though, in the end, think the Bills have a familiarity with themselves that I think will shine through tonight. There's a lot of new parts to the Jets. It's not just Rodgers. It's a lot of the guys on the line. It's their weapons. It's their offensive coordinator. And that's a lot against a team that has been together for a long time. I like the Bills. I'll tell you, though, there's way more pressure on the Jets tonight. They're at home. Everybody expects a ton from them. And if they lose this game, they get a short week and they're going to Dallas next week. The Bills have the Raiders at home next week. So there is way more pressure on the Jets to win tonight than there is the other way around. I'll take the Bills in a close game.
Matt, as always, we appreciate the time every single Monday. Enjoy the games tonight, and we'll talk to you next week, and hopefully things will be a lot more past happy for the Chiefs.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Matt Verderame, Sports Illustrated, SI.com. You know what I'm excited about tonight?
What?
McCole Hardman.
Why? He's not going to see the field.
No, I want to see how much he plays. Like McCole
11
Hardman.
snaps, 1 target, 2 yards.
Have you seen
McCole Hardman?
Have you seen by chance reports about Hardman
No, I don't pay attention to New York media.
So,
New York Jet specific media.
So I follow a ton of NFL people, and there was some talk a week or two ago about Randall Cobb.
Great of a season he's going to have.
Well, about how Randall Cobb has already jumped him on the depth chart. Oft injured 30-something Randall Cobb has jumped McCole Hardman.
He jumps McCole Hardman because he's Rodgers' best friend.
Also, I know you're messing around. I want, my request for the people of national NFL media, stop pretending he's good because the Chiefs drafted him. He's not good. Last year, I thought he was going to be a better player. We talked about it a bunch. And you know what? I was freaking wrong. He stinks.
No, he got hurt.
He's a bum.
He got hurt.
He's a bum. He's a wide receiver with one route, and that route is behind the line of scrimmage.
But he did get hurt.
He was providing more value off the field.
Yeah, now that he's not a Chief, you know who he is in Brendan's eyes? A Missouri Tiger.
Ouch,
Yeah,
McCole Hardman.
He's a bum.
He's going to have a great game tonight. Coming up, we'll go around the NFL, and we'll hear from Andy Reid. children of all ages. Chris Jones back with Chiefs. He is back, folks. That is right. Chris Jones signing a new one-year contract to end his holdout, according to multiple reports. And the Cap brothers, his agents. My goodness, I did not expect this to happen right at 4 o'clock. We'll get into it. Jake Long, Brennan, and Lucero with you. We do have Royals baseball tonight, but nobody cares. We will get to more of the NFL. We hear from Andy Reid, even though he has already spoke, but
we have some further details.
What do we got
from Adam Schefter? Chris Jones still has 1 year left on his deal with the Chiefs.
No new years were added to his contract.
Okay.
He received multiple incentives to earn considerably more money this season. So this is not a contract extension. This is not a long-term deal. This is a way for Chris Jones to make a little bit more money this year. And that's it.
So do we think that this now means it's over? This is the last dance, if you will, for Chris Jones and the Chiefs?
That's sure how it feels.
Yeah, I think so. Which look, it's better this way than he's AWOL for 6 or 7 weeks. He shows up as a mercenary for half a year. Like this to me, we were talking earlier about legacy, right? And what he's going to mean to Chiefs fans. I know we've got some folks who told us next line or comments that they're pretty sick of it and have soured a bit on Jones. I get that, but I think this is a more healthy. Is that maybe the right word? Healthy way for this to probably end. That hey, we're gonna get 15 games maybe out of Jones this season. Hopefully, if he stays healthy, playoff run. He's gonna put up numbers. You keep the core together for one more shot at a Super Bowl. And then I would assume it's probably going to be tag and trade at the end of the year. That seems like the best business decision. So this is probably the middle ground, right, of the possible outcomes. I mean, best outcome would have been you get a deal done long term. Worst outcome would have been you end up in a situation where he doesn't play until he has to, and then you get in a weird tag situation, and then there's animosity. This really feels like, hey, let's play out the string. Let's do the best we can with what we have, and we'll do whatever happens in the future.
Let's go win a championship, and then we will take care of you next offseason. If that means we're able to find common ground on a long-term extension, great. If it doesn't, we will find you another place to play that will give you that money. Just like they did with Tyreek Hill.
See, that's what I think it is.
Place to give him that. They found him a place that would give him the money Tyreek Hill wanted.
That and a place that he wanted to go. Because there will be 20 teams that will want Chris Jones next year. Some of them obviously can't afford him, which is a little bit less than probably half the league. That's what I garner from this. And it almost makes me wonder that the Chiefs said, all right, we will help you out, Chris, by giving you the incentive. If you get 10 sacks, you'll get another $1 million. You get
I'll bet there are some waived fines in this too, if I had to guess.
Well, they can't. They cannot waive them.
Well, they waived Nick
No. You can waive Nick Bosa's because his was his second contract.
Yeah, which is weird.
Okay,
it's weird, but as a rookie or on your rookie deal, you can waive them. As a vet,
you can't. Yeah. So he has to eat all of those.
But to that point, it might not be
probably a way for him to earn that back.
Oh yeah, I think these are going to be some easy incentives to reach.
I would think so,
and we'll know. I bet you by within the next hour, we'll know what the number is and how is he going to have to get to that level.
We also are expected to get a statement shortly per Albert Breer. So we'll hear something from the Chiefs here soon.
Because I wonder if I think the Chiefs, I think this was like, and this is what frustrates me about the long-term deal. I am willing to give Chris Jones a long-term deal. Like I think he's one of the guys that you do give a long-term deal for, even though he is 29 years old. I think he is going to be productive this year, next year, the year after that. We just don't know how much Chris Jones, like the talk was, he wants to rip up this year. Well, the Chiefs are not going to do that. That's not what's going to happen. And I think the Chiefs weren't going to blink. And I think this might be more so the Katz brothers and Chris Jones saying, hey, look, how about this? If I do better, the team does better, and I'll make more money. That's how I kind of look at this. I think this is more of Chris Jones and his group wanted to get back on the field, but wanted to try to make any way possible to get more money. That's how I look at this, because we know the Chiefs are not blinking. And there's no reason for the Chiefs to blink after their defense played pretty decent in the opener against the Lions. I also wonder who was kind of, were the Chiefs, I don't think they were going like the Tyrann Mathieu approach, where it's just, we're not even offering him a contract. But it makes me wonder, the Chiefs stick by their principles with, one, we're not ripping up our contracts, and we don't really want to pay anybody big time money over the age of 30. It makes you wonder,
especially on defense.
It makes you wonder just what the offer was. And that's why Chris Jones held out so long. And now this is a way for Chris Jones to get back on the field, get 10 sacks, make an extra $1 million. And this is where I wonder if it's not Clark Hunt, where Clark Hunt, was like, no, we're not going to give this guy that kind of guaranteed money. It makes you wonder, because now it's just like, all right, he plays, we move on. And I just, short of Chris Jones getting hurt, I don't see him in a Chiefs uniform in 24.
We have the statement now from the Chiefs. It's just been released. Chris is an elite player in this league, and over the last 7 years, he's really developed into a leader on our team, General Manager Brett Veach said. He's been instrumental to our success in Super Bowl championship runs, and it was a priority for us to keep him in a Chiefs uniform. I'd like to thank Chris and his representation, Michael and Jason Katz, for their desire and patience to get this done. Through this process, two things were obvious. Chris wanted to be a Chief, and the Katz brothers worked diligently on his behalf. That's all we've got as far as the statement goes. We don't have a quote from Reid.
Man, can you get as generic as you possibly could there?
Doing everything they can to keep that relationship strong between the two sides, hyping up the agents there. Yeah, I mean, this is, again, I feel like this is an okay way for this to end. And who knows, maybe things go so well this season and they do work out something long-term. I doubt it.
Because there's one other principle that the Chiefs have followed that sort of runs at odds with the idea of, once you get to your 30s, we're not going to pay you big bucks. We're not going to do a long-term contract. And that is, the Chiefs have prioritized keeping elite talent in the building. Like Tyrann Mathieu, by the time it was time for the Chiefs to decide what they were going to do with him when he hit free agency, it was clear that Tyrann Mathieu was no longer an elite player. Still a good player at the end of his time with the Chiefs, but no longer an elite player, no longer like game-changing talent on the back end of the secondary. There was a time when he was that. That time was when the Chiefs signed him. It was not when the Chiefs made the decision to let him move on. Chris Jones, even entering his 30s, could still well be an impact player into his 30s. We've seen a lot of...
I think he will.
We've seen a lot of players at his position continue to be impactful players into their 30s. Aaron Donald has continued to be an impactful player into his 30s. John Randall was an impactful interior pass rusher into his 30s. There's no reason Chris Jones can't be that. So it may just be that the number Chris Jones wants is a little too much of a stress test for the salary cap when you're already going to have to pay Mahomes what you're going to have to pay him. That could be the case. But
if that's the case, that's got to be a bigger number than what we think. Like, okay, if the Chiefs were offering 27, he wanted 30. That's $3 million. $3 million seems like you can find a way to make that work, right? You know what I mean? You can make that work. It kind of makes me wonder if they weren't $6 to $7 million apart. I don't know. That just, I think he's going to be good. That's why I would have signed Chris Jones. Everybody knows I was very anti signing Orlando Brown, all of that. I would have signed Chris Jones to a long-term deal this offseason, short of he wanted $31 million.
I hear you, and I don't, on principle, disagree, but we're looking at this from fans and people who analyze the games and the athletes themselves, not bean counters and accountants. And that,
True.
And again, not that you're wrong, and I think in principle we're on the same page, but it's different because we don't have, marching orders from the Hunt family, or we don't have, a list of our team principals that we sign every contract to or whatever. So I think you view it a little bit differently when Chris Jones is employee 01642 and not number 95 of the defensive line, which is a crappy way to look at it. I recognize that as I say it out loud. Like, that's a really lame way to view sports, but that people are paid to view it that way.
Feels a little Moneyball-y.
Yeah, which
this feels,
and not in like a fun way, like a really bad way.
That statement just absolutely screams, no one likes this deal, but this is what's best for the here and now. Like, nobody likes this. The Chiefs don't like it because they got to add more money to it. The Katz brothers don't like it, and Chris Jones doesn't like it because he's not getting the guaranteed money. What this is a franchise tag before a franchise tag, and nobody likes playing on the franchise tag. Nobody does, because there is some risk for Chris Jones here, and the reason why is you are 29 years old. If you suffer a big injury, you are not getting paid. If Nick Bosa last year got an injury that was very severe, he's still going to get paid. Why? Because he's 25 years old. Chris Jones, you are going to be 30 years old next year. If you suffer a big-time injury, your money goes in half. No one is going to be like, oh, yeah, we'll sign a defensive tackle for $30 million a year for the next 3 years. We'll give you $80 million guaranteed. Nobody's going to do that if he gets serious. That's what this seems to me like. This is the an agreement that nobody likes, but you got to do something, because I also think the Katz brothers also had to cave on this because they know that the Chiefs hold all the cards money-wise. If he continues to hold out, his money then goes down next year, and instead of making, $20 million this year and $32 million next year, that's $55 million over the next 2 years. Well, he could only make, $19 million next year and $16 million this year, and he's already out $20 million going into next year. I just think that the way that Brett Veach and the statement that was made, like you said, don't want to hurt any, don't want to burn any bridges, but we're going to have to put out a statement at some point in time. I don't. The only real winner in all of this is that for 2023, the Chiefs get Chris Jones, but I mean, and it's over now. Like, this is the win-win is for everybody in that locker room who doesn't have to answer questions about it anymore. For the coaching staff, and Andy Reid doesn't have to answer questions about it anymore. And for a defense that played well in week 1 and now adds its best player back for the rest of the season. Like, so it's good. It's a net positive. Adam Teicher of ESPN has said, by the way, that the expectation is that Chris Jones will be in uniform. Yeah.
Sunday.
Booger off ESPN,
Booger McFarland.
He goes, congrats. I just wouldn't have done it. He's one injury away from losing $100 million. That's what Booger McFarland said. He's betting on himself. Now, I will say this. You're going to get contract year Chris Jones.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get a guy who is trying to pay or get enough money this year
to get the big deal. But also, every single sack that he gets, he should do the Johnny Football money sign, because every sack he gets is going to increase his bank account.
Good. If that's his motivation, then he should ball out.
Then
he should go crazy this year. What we always talk about contract years being undefeated,
and that's
right?
Maybe why the Chiefs, because nobody's happy with this from my view, but the Chiefs are saying, hey, we'll give you some more money, even though you don't deserve it because you're under contract, but we want you to kick butt. So here's your chance to get more money. And at least Chris Jones then looks at this and says, hey, I'm going to bet on myself. He really is. He can get more money this way. He could make more money now this year than he was going to make, and he can still get paid the bag.
By the way, for the sake of intrigue, Javon Hargrave, who is a really, really good player, but probably slightly lesser player than Chris Jones, he was 30 when he signed his deal this offseason for $84 million. So if you total value, I don't know what his guaranteed was, $40 million guaranteed. So Chris Jones, I mean, if he plays really well, he's still going to get that contract he wanted all along, but he's got to stay healthy, and he's got to perform.
At the end of the day, the goals of the Kansas City Chiefs and the goals of Chris Jones are pretty intertwined. For the Chiefs to get to where they want to go, they need Chris Jones to go nuts and have double-digit sacks and be an all-pro the way he has been when the Chiefs have been really good. For Chris Jones, his interest is in doing that so he can get a big fat paycheck next year. So when you have interests that intertwine in this way, usually that ends up being a pretty good relationship.
What makes this, to me, exciting is that, one, you're going to have a motivated Chris Jones. Two, you saw the defense play pretty well against the Lions.
Held a Lions defense that most people expect to be pretty good, to 14 points.
You saw George Kalafdis play well. Felix Anudike-Uzomah played well. Mike Dana played well. And, their second best pass rusher shows up week 7. Like, there's a chance that this Chiefs defense can be pretty good if they all stay healthy.
And that can be the discussion now instead of waiting for Godot with Chris Jones.
What did you just say?
Waiting for Godot.
Last night, I was watching. I thought of this because Jake mentioned Booger McFarland. I was watching NFL Primetime, which is on ESPN Plus now. And, I mean, it's not the heyday of NFL Primetime, obviously.
Miss you, Tom Jackson.
Yeah, there's no Tom Jackson anymore, who just the best. But I still love Chris Berman, so I watch it when I can. Booger McFarland is his partner now, and it sounds like a guy pretending to be Tom Jackson doing the show. And
there's only one TJ.
Only one TJ. And Berman is calling a play. I don't remember which game it was from. It was some sick run. It might have been the 49er game. It might have been a Christian McCaffrey run. Berman calls the highlight, and then Booker just goes, they call that the stanky leg, boom. And it was like the funniest line I've ever heard during a highlight. Hearing Booger McFarland use the phrase stanky leg with Chris Berman.
I don't think I want to know what Chris Berman thought the stanky leg was before that.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire tweeting out 95 exclamation points. So I think Chiefs players are excited. That's why you can see how good a Menahu inside. They could have a salty defense and a motivated Chris Jones. And I'm excited for the game now on Sunday just to see what this defense is going to do against a good Jacksonville offense.
You go from week 1 with a big shrug of, well, I like some of these guys. Let's see what happens, to by week 7, Jones will be fully ramped up and Omenahu will be back. And at least Omenahu had camp. I know he can't practice in full right now. But then all of a sudden, dang, we got some dogs on this line.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. So 1 year for Chris Jones, kind of a mercenary role, to be honest with you. Coming up, we've got What Is Wrong With You, and then we'll hear from Andy Reid.
What is wrong with you time here on 580 Sports Talk? Brendan and Dan here with you the rest of the way. 2 new stories to start off the week. And of course, what is wrong with you is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications. That saves time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to metal at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Dan, would you like to go first today?
Sure. I'll go first today. Remember last year, right around this time, where we met the guy from the country club that decided that the best way to commemorate the September 11th attacks on what would have been the 21st anniversary was to do a 9/11 themed seafood dinner.
I can't believe that's been a year. That's been a full year, but I guess I know what day it is.
Yes.
That's unbelievable. Yeah, that was all time.
The remember teeny and the never forget flounder or whatever it was incredibly poor taste. It has not stopped happening that people have chosen poorly when it comes to
the first responder flatbread.
Yes, first responder flatbread.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they named something after the number of people that died on 9/11. It was just incredibly poor taste.
Yeah.
I think people are generally well-intentioned when it comes to wanting to never forget 9/11 and to honor and commemorate that day and make sure that the memory of the people who needlessly lost their lives, the first responders who gave their lives on that day, are not forgotten. I do think that there are lots of good intentions with that, but sometimes simply saying never forget is sufficient. You don't have to do a 9/11 seafood themed menu. And you definitely don't have to do this. A 9/11 never forget parlay from DraftKings Sportsbook. Earlier today, if you were logged on to a DraftKings account, you may have seen the never forget parlay. Bet these New York teams to win tonight on 9/11. You could have parlayed a Mets victory over the Arizona Diamondbacks at Citi Field, a Yankees win at Fenway Park against the Red Sox, and a Jets win on Monday Night Football. I think you were getting plus 651 odds for the parlay, something along those lines. I can't tell you exactly because wiser heads ultimately prevailed, as they generally do, and this parlay was pulled from the app. Yeah, plus 651 odds. DraftKings has since issued an apology. Quote, "We sincerely apologize for the featured parlay that was shared briefly in commemoration of 9/11.
In commemoration.
Is there a more American sentence than our bad on the parlay to remember 9/11? Our bad on the 9/11 parlay, guys. The statement also says, we respect the significance of this day for our country and especially for the families of those who were directly affected. We are, again, want to make clear, we are not making fun of or mocking the events of September 11th, 2001. We are simply making fun of and mocking people, entities, a sports book who decide, hey, let's commemorate it with something that is completely unnecessary and not in any way germane to remembering 9/11.
You know, I think consumerism-wise, we already do a bad job of like, hey, Memorial Day, you know what that means? Mattress sale.
Cheap mattresses, yes.
Yeah, like that already is so off the mark. But this is particularly gross. Like an event that is still so, even still, is raw and meaningful and devastating and sad and all of these things. And be like, hey, remember this horrible day that changed world history and U.S. history, not for the better? Let's commemorate it by betting on the Mets. No, absolutely not. It's just like, who came up with this? And why do you not have an editor or someone who can say, you know what? No.
Director of Common Sense at DraftKings Sportsbook, not available for comment.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, you just got to have somebody up there to like tell, hey, SpaghettiOs, maybe don't tweet the recreation of people raising the flag at Iwo Jima in commemoration of Veterans Day. Hey, at Garfield on Twitter, you don't need to do a tweet with Garfield solemnly looking at a painting of the American flag and tweet it on 9/11.
It's one of those things where, and I guess this is getting into something a little different topic, but not everything needs to be like, we should talk about what this day means, but you don't need to be like Chips Ahoy doesn't need to post today.
No,
you can just let it be.
Yeah, we don't need a deep and somber reflection of what September 11th means from a brand. Right? No. That's not what we're looking for.
And you know what? Shout out to Chips Ahoy. They have not tweeted today.
Good.
They have not tweeted since Friday.
I haven't checked at Garfield.
It's just unnecessary. A parlay. Get out of here, man.
Garfield has not tweeted since September 9th. He's sitting this one out, and that's a good move for Garfield.
Oh, he does hate Mondays.
He does.
Oh, my.
Still in bed.
I saw someone tweet about it late last night, and I thought, there's no way this is real. And I opened the app, and oh yeah, it was real. Oh my God.
Just don't. If you have any question in your mind, is it appropriate to commemorate 9/11 with this? It probably isn't.
Yeah. And Mark says on YouTube, never good to make fun of a tragedy. And I don't even know if they were making fun of it, but it's just like, there's no reason to tie these together. These do not ever need to be joined at the hip.
Right.
Just keep them apart. That's okay.
It's like we're boosting the odds of a Jets touchdown tonight to plus 911.
Like, I don't think of, oh, jeez, man. I don't, like, if I wanted to think about something meaningful today, I'm going to go read the Falling Man. Is that what
Tom Junod's Esquire piece? Yes, The Falling Man. Yes.
I'm going to read that. I'm going to read about what it was like.
Remember Wells Crowther, the red bandana.
Yeah.
The stories like that are the things that we should resurface, that we should use to commemorate and remember this day and what it represents and what it means to so many people. Not give them boosted odds for getting down on the Yankees and Mets and Jets.
Unbelievable. Bet on the Mets. Despicable.
Why would you even do that? They stink.
They're terrible.
Arizona's good. The bet is a loser, man.
Our second what is wrong with you for today? This is just so awful. Our second what is wrong with you today is going to take us to East Longmeadow, Massachusetts, and the writing of Jackson Cody from MassLive.com. 10 to 15 people fighting, chairs and bowling balls being thrown through the air, absolute chaos. This is how police described a large-scale brawl that broke out at a bowling alley late Friday and ended with multiple individuals arrested. Police responded shortly after 10:20 p.m. to a report of several people fighting inside the Shaker Bowl bowling alley on Shaker Road, which offers regular bowling and not candlepin bowling. Really important note there. Officer Zachary Porembo was the first to arrive at the scene and described it as absolute chaos, with 10 to 15 people actively fighting and chairs and bowling balls flying through the air in all directions. Poremba quickly restrained and handcuffed two different women who he alleged he saw raise bowling balls over their head to throw at others. Another officer, Nicholas Otteson, arrived at the bowling alley shortly after and detained another woman who he described as being an active aggressor in the fight. First responders had to evaluate multiple people for injuries. However, thankfully, no one was seriously injured. There were some minor injuries. Officers spoke with multiple witnesses and arrested the three aforementioned women, ages 19, 19, and 21, on multiple charges, including assault and battery by a dangerous weapon and disorderly conduct. It is still under investigation. What are you doing throwing bowling balls at someone at 19? Shouldn't you be like having pizza in a Shirley Temple on a Friday night? What are you doing?
Two-handed overhead pass like Wes Unseld starting the break? Like, what are we doing here?
Trying to throw the ball down court right before the half.
That's an impressive feat of athleticism, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, those things are dense.
They're not candlepin balls.
What could have possibly sparked something that led to someone wanting to throw a bowling ball at another person? That's my question.
I don't know, man. Bowling alleys feel like a place where there's some brawls that go down, where it get pretty lit at the bowling alley.
That part's probably, but like not over the bowling, I would assume. Everything's automated now. You don't even have to keep your own score. There's no cheating. It's automatically kept. Chill out. Just chill out. Don't throw bowling balls at other people. The 9/11 parlay wins. It's just so sick. I'm so mad at it that it exists.
I don't know that it's a weekly winner, but it has to win today.
Yeah.
I mean, as good as
I'm pretty sure we said the same thing last year about the seafood menu.
Yes, we advanced the seafood menu through, but we said there's no way this is winning the week, but it has to win today. Now, the bowling alley brawl, if we had more details, could have been a strong contender. I'm willing to put a pin in that one for later.
All right.
If we get some new detail, I may set a Google alert for bowling alley brawl. And see if we get any more information on that one. But no, you have to give the nod to the 9/11 Never Forget parlay.
It's so stupid.
It is just astronomically stupid.
That is our winner today. Really a loser, but it is our winner today in What Is Wrong With You. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. Top City Metal Supply. Let's get to a break. When we come back, we will hear Andy Reid and what he had to say today before the Chris Jones news. That's next on 580 Sports Talk. To round out this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, let's hear from Chiefs coach Andy Reid and what he had to say earlier this afternoon.
Anything to tell you on the injuries other than Trav is getting better. He's progressing. We'll see how he does the rest of today and tomorrow, and then we'll go from there. As far as Chris, updates on Chris, I really don't have much of an update for you there. There is communication going on, however, and that's a plus, and Brett's taking care of all that. As far as the game goes, listen, there were some good things. There were some things we obviously need to work on. We'll get the receiving things taken care of. I feel good about the receivers that we have. That was just we're not normally guys that drop the ball, but we did. And so that's reality, but we've got to fix that. I think we still have some talent there that they'll just keep improving as they continue to play. I've seen what they can do before, so I'm figuring we'll get that worked out. And then defensively, there were some good things. There were some real positives. The 3rd and 12 got us, but there were some positive things in there. Again, that we can work on, and there's some things that we need to clean up. But I thought the effort was there. I thought that was good. I thought for the most part the plan was good on both sides, and then the special teams part of it. We had worked real hard on all these different fakes, and they got us. I mean, they got us in a position there where they needed a couple yards, and they were able to, get that. The penalty before that, they gave them just 2 yards ago wasn't good. So, anyways, with that, time's yours.
Hey, Andy. We have not seen a game like that from Kadarius Toney since he's been here. How do you explain the way he played the other night? And Brad, I'll have a second question as well.
Yeah, you know what, Adam? I would probably take the blame on that. I mean, the kid. When I said that after the game, I meant that. He missed all the training camp from honestly the first punt return pre-practice on through. So he literally had no training camp until just the last few days when we got back here. He did some, and we measured that. We didn't give him a lot. But with that, I thought him getting in the game was important. And then, but to be fair, I've got to kind of look in the mirror on that one. That I probably didn't put him in the best position there because he doesn't drop the ball. I mean, that's just not his deal. He's a very, very secure catcher. And I just think that the only way we're going to get him back is playing him. I think this week will be different than the last week, but I thought it was important that he got in the game, got caught up on the speed. But I probably put him in bad positions, in primary positions there, and especially later in the game. He's still getting his legs back and all that bit. So,
are there things you need to do with him to kind of get him back on that path, to get him?
Yeah, I think. Listen, I think he's had some time here now to keep working, which I think will benefit him. Getting in that game, I thought was an important thing. I mean, that part was important. Putting him in the positions I did, I probably shouldn't have done that. But I think you'll see better as we go down the road here from him.
Hey, Andy, just with your wide receivers in general, is it your ultimate goal for some guys to separate themselves in the rotation, or do you foresee trying to cycle them all into the game, over the long haul as well?
Yeah, we've got the 3 guys that have been here, and they end up doing, probably the best in the game. And then we've got 3 younger guys that we've got to bring along. And then you have James, who's been in a form of this, and then is really tied into the special teams too. So I think the 3 younger guys, whether it's 4, 8, 19, they're all kind of new in this and learning in games. And as much as we think Kadarius is a seasoned veteran, he hasn't really played a lot. So, but I think you'll see growth from them as we go. We'll just see how that continues to work, but eventually you'd love them all to be, where we want them. So, and then if they separate, they separate. Well, however that works, it works, but I can't predict that part.
Obviously, there was so much focus on the drops after the game. How would you just analyze the wide receiver performance outside of the drops part? Obviously there were a couple routes one early on. Go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah, I think the route part was good. I just think that we've got to, for the most part, there are a couple that we've got to work You guys had asked me about the crossing route. We kind of goofed that up. So, I mean, but we can fix that part. We've all got to do better. That's kind of the thing I took out of this was whether it's coaching, whether it's playing, whether it's the O-line, D-line, we can all take something out of this game and get better at it. I didn't think all the way around. There were spurts of good, and then there were spurts of not so good, and then we're right in a position to go win the game. And normally we do that. We didn't do that, but normally we take advantage of those situations. And defense had a big play on the batted ball, and then we had a holding penalty, and we had a drop there that down the stretch that would have put us right in position to finish it off. So, I've told you guys this before, and I tell the team this all the time, and tell myself this all the time, that there's a small margin between winning and losing in this thing. And, but you got to take care of business when you put yourself through 4 quarters in a position to go get it. Then you take care of business and finish it.
Hey, Andy, I have 2 questions as well. My first one is, this was the first time with you and Nagy sort of working together without obviously EB to call the plays. I know you say you have 51% of the vote. I just wonder, how do you think the operation went between you and Nagy? And did you try to give him much of the say in the play calling on Thursday night?
Yeah, we had great communication. I mean, that's how we go about it. I mean, it was just like as if EB were there. I mean, it's the same type of communication that we have during a game. I thought that part was relatively smooth. I didn't have a problem with the way that went.
Andy, with Kadarius, I think you used the term, the only way to get him back. And I do wonder if when somebody has a game like that, how much you feel like you might need to talk to him directly about what happened and either reassure him or just get a better understanding of what went wrong.
Yeah. So normally the player knows probably better than anybody. So, but I have talked to him a couple different times. And so, we just need to keep going through the process here. It's, you got to keep playing, and the more he plays, I mean, that's just not his thing. I mean, he's not a guy that drops balls. He's got great hands. So we just got to keep working through it.
And the other thing, Andy, too, is I don't know if you're aware of this, but he'd had some social media kind of, blasting Giants a little bit. And I wonder if you're aware of that and what you'd say to that, but also in general, how you deal with that kind of thing when it comes up as it does.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't know that. You're saying recently, I presume?
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. But if it is a problem, then I obviously talk to the person about it.
Hey, Coach, I had a couple of questions about just the offensive line play. In particular, first, Juwan has a really good quick first step. How does the tackle develop that as far as getting on the quarterback's cadence and being able to get that quick first step on the outside? Yeah,
so he works on that hard. He gets it pretty close at times and sometimes too fast. And so we've got to make sure it's not too fast, because then that obviously hurts the team. So, but he takes a lot of pride in that and works very hard at that to try to make sure that he gets off well. And you watch the rest of the games this weekend. I mean, that's with these defensive ends and the way they can roll, that helps you get into position, a tick quicker and that. But you don't want to be offsides. That's for sure.
And you mentioned the rest of the weekend. There's a lot of talk now about the tackles and some who do line up, but maybe a little bit more in the backfield than traditional. And the question about how close it gets to the rule. What is your coaching point and Andy Heck's coaching point about how to line up there and what's kind of allowed and not allowed?
Yeah. So normally you're able to split the center's hip there. The guys, you don't want it to be a tell when you're running passing. You also have the officials there. They'll normally help you out with it if you're too deep. They'll give you a warning and you go with it. they do a good job with that, I think. And so, Matt, I mean, the guys are all trying to get every advantage they can. This has been a life since the passing game came into fruition. That's been one of the things that, tackles do. I mean, that's been around for a long time. And then you just have to make sure that you don't take advantage of it and get yourself either too deep or leave off the snap too quick.
Coach, wanted to ask you about a specific part of your game study. What did you make of the run blocking, and how reasonable is it to think week to week that can be improved heading into the next game?
Yeah, we can always do better. So, and we need to do better there. And so we'll get that taken care of. That's a good group up front there. But we've got to clean up some things too.
Yeah, I know the short yardage has been a bugaboo at times, and the play kind of got blown up this last time. Just on that play specifically, it didn't. I mean, there was a breakdown everywhere, right? It wasn't just one guy. Is that a result of not enough reps with it? Is it what kind of went into that breaking down?
Yeah, we've been practicing it. They got us from inside, and so if you're gonna. Normally if there's going to be a breakdown, you're thinking off the edge or something, but definitely not inside. You want to have the guy to be able to dart inside if he needs to, and, whether it's the B gap or C gap, but, we just overset that thing a little too far. So can't do that.
Would you, is putting Blaine Gabbert in to run short yardage? Is that, I know, there've been a couple of quarterbacks and other teams that the backup has kind of been that specialty guy. He's a bigger guy. Would you consider?
I'll tell you what's crazy is when you play these Thursday games, then you get to see all these other games. And QB sneaks didn't look too good yesterday, honestly. So we'll go back and we're gonna figure it out here. I mean, that's what we do. I mean, we try to make sure we get this covered, but we've got to do better. I mean, it's just better.
Andy Reid will do absolutely anything to avoid ever running a quarterback sneak the rest of his life. Absolutely anything. Even the quip there at the end, other teams weren't running them very well either.
No, the Colts ran one with doing the push with Anthony Richardson, and they didn't get the first down.
Yep.
Like, there are no guarantees, but
similarly, though, the Bears ran the tight end direct snap, and it also failed on 4th and less than 1. It just, come on, Andy, come on.
Maybe every team's bad at it now. Maybe we're so in the era of space and get guys in space. Like, I think in the Colts-Jaguars game, the teams were combined 2 for 8 on 4th down. Doug Peterson, fruit of the coaching tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ran a tight end screen on a 4th and 1 at midfield. It did not succeed.
I saw Robbie Calland, who's one of my favorite follows on Twitter. He said that the Jags-Colts game did more than any other individual game to undo all of our work on 4th down analytics. More, just totally tearing it down. We've got 1 hour left of 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines, a lot of them today. Plus, we'll play a little around the NFL. What storylines from yesterday are real and which ones are a little more fake? Plus, we'll preview Monday Night Football all next hour on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 1 hour to go on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you until 6 o'clock today. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on this first Monday of the NFL season. Monday Night Football coming up tonight. Bills versus Jets.
Maybe.
Well, maybe.
At some point tonight.
Yeah.
They've got public safety warnings at MetLife Stadium right now. Gnarly weather in the tri-state.
Yeah, yikes. We've got a programming note for you. In fact, we're going to get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines here. We'll go around the NFL. We didn't get to in full earlier today because of the Chris Jones news, also coming up in headlines. But we'll do that coming up later on this hour. We will preview the eventual start of Monday Night Football as well. But a programming note, no Royals tonight. That game has been banged. There's bad weather everywhere, all over the country right now.
We got some nice rain today here in the capital city.
Yeah, my commute, not especially fun today. Added an extra 7 or 8 minutes onto how long it took me to get here. I don't have to come from all that far. Pretty rainy here, rainy all over. So White Sox hosting the Royals tonight. That game punted to tomorrow. So we will now have a doubleheader, Royals-White Sox, traditional doubleheader tomorrow. 3:40 first pitch for game one. Pre-game will begin tomorrow at 3 o'clock. That means you're only getting 1 hour of 580 Sports Talk tomorrow. The two of us plus Jake will be here 2 until 3 tomorrow, and then we'll ship you off to the Royals Radio Network and join you again on Wednesday. So that is tomorrow. Tonight, here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, what you will hear instead, right at the top of the 6 o'clock hour at its normal broadcast time, we will hear the Chiefs Kingdom Show with Mitch Holthus and Andy Reid, live from a Kansas City area, Hy-Vee. And then at 7 o'clock, following the Chiefs Kingdom Show, we will take you directly to coverage of Monday Night Football. It might be 20 minutes of pregame. It might be more than 20 minutes of pregame. Don't know at this point with the weather in New York, but that is the plan for tonight. 580 Sports Talk until 6, Chiefs Kingdom from 6 to 7, and then coverage of Monday Night Football from Westwood 1 from 7 o'clock onward tonight here on 580 WIBW with the Royals Twin Bill tomorrow. So look forward to that. Very exciting. I love a good traditional doubleheader. I wish we did more of them. I really do.
Yeah, more of them on the schedule.
Yeah.
You ever been to one, like, as a fan?
Never have.
Was it my summer before my senior? Yeah, I think it was the summer before my senior year of high school. So this would have been 04, and this would have been early August because it was before I went out to college. The Rockies had a traditional doubleheader. They rescheduled. I think they got snowed out in April against the Marlins, and so they made up the games in early August on like a Monday, a dead day in the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, we're going to make up these games. We're going to play them traditional doubleheader. First pitch for the first game at like 1:05, and the second game immediately following. And me and like 3 of my best buddies and my little brother got tickets, and we went to the games. And for the first game, there were like 600 people in the ballpark. Because
all retirees,
it was, yes, or sickos, because it was a hideously bad Rockies team in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And it filled up a little bit. You know, people kind of started to filter in for the second game of the doubleheader. There was a little bit more of a crowd presence for the second game, but it's very fun to spend like all day watching baseball at the ballpark. Big league baseball. It's fun. Like, I know that the White Sox are garbage, but I know there are going to be people that really enjoy the traditional doubleheader there in Chicago tomorrow.
I feel like for a while we weren't doing traditional doubleheaders. I feel like for most of my youth it was day-night doubleheaders.
The day-night, yeah. The traditional has maybe come back into vogue a little bit in recent years.
I did not hate the proposal a year or two ago to just make Sundays doubleheader day. I did not hate that. It would be hard to do because you got the Sunday night baseball contract, and then you pretty much have to give everyone a Monday off the day after.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of liked it.
Yeah, I just think every team should host a doubleheader. Like whether it's Saturday doubleheader or midweek doubleheader, like business person special type of doubleheader. That's what they used to call them. I don't know if they I don't know what they call like the day games when they have like midweek day games in Kansas City, like if the Royals have a name for those. But I distinctly remember as a kid when the Rockies had a day game, like especially at the old Mile High Stadium, and they would start at like 12:35, and they would call it. It was called on the tickets like business person special. So I always think of day games in my head.
That's funny.
I always think of them as the business person special.
That's really funny.
And I do. I just think that's just a fun thing to do, is go and spend a day and like make it easy to get kids in that day. And do promotions, do giveaways, really blow it out. But every team should host a doubleheader every year. I know there are 2 intentionally scheduled for next season. And it's the first time Major League Baseball has intentionally scheduled doubleheaders in a long time.
Yeah.
The Rockies are one of them, I think. The Rockies Astros, I think, play a doubleheader, something weird like that. But no, all in favor of doubleheaders, and not just because we only have to prepare for an hour of show tomorrow.
I mean, I guess it's
a nice perk.
It is.
We're going to sprint headlong through that hour, guys. We are going to bring it. I'm telling you right now, listeners, you are going to get all our best in 1 hour.
I mean, usually we have to save up enough fuel to make it 4 hours. We can burn it up tomorrow.
Right. We got to coast. We got a text from the text line. I remember as a kid, the Royals hosted an Arab Shriners doubleheader. Between the games, there was an animal parade along the warning track with elephants and such.
Hell yeah.
That whips. I wish I could have been there for that.
Yeah, that rules. What the hell?
Elephants on the warning track
at the K.
This is probably the turf era, I'm guessing. Like, I'm not insinuating anything about the age of the texter, but it was artificial, like carpet turf at the K for a very long time. And certainly in the era when they were having doubleheaders on purpose. You imagine an elephant leaving one on the turf in center field.
Never smelled anything worse in your entire life.
Oh my God. It's 105 degrees in the middle of the summer.
Oh my God.
Willie Wilson begging for a day off.
So that is, again, our programming note for today and tomorrow. We've got Chiefs Kingdom at 6 because of the Royals being punted. Monday Night Football immediately after. And then tomorrow, doubleheader, traditional doubleheader. Royals coverage begins at 3 o'clock for their doubleheader with the White Sox. Short show for us tomorrow. All right, let's get to today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. The first one is the obvious one from the weekend, and, well, really from today. Chris Jones is back with the Kansas City Chiefs. He has agreed to a 1-year deal with the team. So this is not a 1-year extension. This is essentially a reworking or an adjustment on the final year of his current contract. What it is going to be is a deal with significant incentives, and I would imagine, this is my conjecture, easy incentives to hit for at least a few of them so we can earn back the money he lost in fines. He will hit some of those incentives and will end up getting the raise that he was initially looking for going into this year. And then the Chiefs and the Katz brothers and Jones will revisit his situation after the season. Again, here's my conjecture. I imagine he's probably going to end up getting traded, tagged and then traded. That's what my assumption would be. The statement from Brett Veach, general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, reads, quote, Chris is an elite player in this league, and over the last 7 years, he's really developed into a leader on our team. He's been instrumental to our success and Super Bowl championship runs, and it was a priority for us to keep him in a Chiefs uniform. I'd like to thank Chris and his representation, Michael and Jason Katz, for their desire and patience to get this done. Through this process, 2 things were obvious. Chris wanted to be a Chief, and the Katz brothers worked diligently on his behalf. End of quote. This isn't the best case scenario when you take the entire situation into account, because the best case scenario would have been they get a new 4-year extension done and he's a Chief long-term into his 30s and his last big deal is with the Chiefs. The worst case scenario would be continued animosity and then a nasty tag situation next year. This one kind of right down the middle. You don't feel great about it probably if you're the Chiefs. You probably don't feel great about it if you're Chris Jones, which honestly probably makes it the most fair outcome for anyone. So you live with it. You go try to win a championship this year, and we'll revisit it in February or March.
Yeah, I think you can draw some conclusions to the end of all of this. Number one is that Chris Jones wants to be a Chief, but not so bad that he wants to make less than he feels that he's worth. The Chiefs want Chris Jones to play for their team. They just don't want to pay him too deep into his 30s or pay him too much too long into his 30s. And I would suspect that the incentives in this contract will probably be really easy for Chris Jones to get to so that he can, because as we talked about, you can't recoup or have your fines waived. All the money Chris Jones has lost sitting out training camp, sitting out preseason, sitting out the first game, he can't get that money back. They can't waive the fines like you could waive the fines of a player on a rookie contract who holds out. But these escalators or incentives in Jones's contract, I would imagine, would look very similar to the amount of money he left on the table and might be really easy for him to hit. We don't know what those look like yet. We may see more details of it. I would suspect we'll see more details of it in the coming hours, days, certainly. But I would suspect these would be really easy incentives for Chris Jones to hit. And again, the goal for Chris Jones is to ball out and get paid. The goal for the Chiefs is to win a Super Bowl, which is easier if Chris Jones balls out. And if the goal for Chris Jones is to get paid, that's easier for him if he balls out. So there is mutual interest in Chris Jones playing at a high level for the Chiefs this season. And thankfully, that mutual interest was finally good enough to get Jones back in the building and presumably on the field for Sunday in Jacksonville.
Real quick before this is awesome. Before we get to our next headline, to the point about doubleheaders, this is from Greg in the YouTube comments. Thanks for hanging out with us today, Greg. My brother took me to a doubleheader, front row, third base. Toma chewed me out for tossing peanut shells on the field. I had it coming, but I was only 14. Should have known better, but I was just a hick in the city. You know what? I respect it. So with peanut shells.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. This is the way
Live and
fields used
learn.
to drain. Like, I remember the first time I went to Lawrence Dumont Stadium in Wichita and bringing, as I usually do, I shouldn't say always, but usually to a baseball game, I bring a bag of sunflower seeds.
Sure.
And then seeing the signs all over the place, please do not spit seeds. Please. So I bought a large soda and I walked out of the stadium with a cup full of spent sunflower seeds. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, hey, you got to do it somehow. No, I appreciate that story, Greg.
Great
Thanks
story,
for sharing
Greg.
that with us. Dan, what's your first headline today?
First headline for me, let's go around the NFL with some injury-related headlines. It was a tough week one on the injury front. I don't know more so than usual. We've had some pretty rough week ones in NFL history when it comes to prominent players getting hurt, like the year Brady blew out his knee. There have been some other rough ones, but yesterday, obviously, there was some not great injury news, starting with Ravens running back J.K. Dobbins.
This sucks, man.
Tore his Achilles in Baltimore's week one victory over Houston. He is out for the year. Coach John Harbaugh says that the Ravens will not look to add a running back outside the organization. They're going to stick with Justice Hill, Gus Edwards, and promoted from the practice squad, Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chief, Melvin Gordon III. So that'll be the backfield for the Ravens moving forward. It was also it was a very difficult injury day for the Ravens in particular. Safety Marcus Williams injured his pectoral muscle. Offensive tackle Ronnie Stanley went down with a knee. Center Tyler Linderbaum injured his ankle. And tight end Mark Andrews suffered a quadricep injury. So they're all going to be on the injury report this week. Williams in particular may be out a while. He is considering surgery. Harbaugh says it may not be a season ender, but nobody came out of week one worse on the injury front than the Ravens.
One real quick note on J.K. Dobbins and why this sucks so much specifically for him. He entered the league in 2020 and was healthy for almost the whole year. He played 15 games. Since entering the league in 2020, he then missed all of 2021 due to an injury. He only played 8 games in 2022, and he got through a half, not even a full half yesterday. He has now played a grand total of 24 out of a possible 50 games in his career. And if you don't want to count yesterday, a grand total of 24 or 23 of 49. That sucks, man.
Yeah.
I feel for him. And as a running back, too, that's...
And an awesome player. Like every time he's been on the field, he's been a highlight reel. Unfortunately, his body is just broken down on him, and an Achilles injury is a tough one for a running back to come back from. Other injury notes, Pittsburgh Steelers may have to prepare to be without Cameron Hayward for several weeks. He suffered a groin injury in the first half of Pittsburgh's loss to the San Francisco 49ers. No guarantee that Hayward will go on injured reserve. No guarantee at this point that he will need surgery, but those options are on the table, and there's a chance that for a second straight year after TJ Watt got hurt in the opener last year, the Steelers could be without one of their defensive captains for an extended period of time after a week one injury. There was an injury for the Philadelphia Eagles. Linebacker Nakobe Dean is going to miss multiple weeks. He suffered a right foot injury in the Eagles' opening win over the Patriots. Also, James Bradbury is in the concussion protocol. That may make it hard for Bradbury to play Thursday night when the Eagles return to action, the first Amazon Prime game of the year as the Eagles take on the Minnesota Vikings. Tough injury day for the Seattle Seahawks. They got thumped by the Los Angeles Rams. You may have wondered, why couldn't they move the ball in the second half? Well, both of their starting tackles went down due to injury. Right tackle Abe Lucas injured his knee. Left tackle Charles Cross suffered turf toe. Pete Carroll, as he tends to be, was not very clear about how much time, if any, that Lucas and Cross will miss. But it's obvious they're concerned about Cross because Ian Rappaport is reporting that the Seahawks are bringing in Jason Peters on a visit tomorrow. The 41-year-old Peters had been looking for a job this entire offseason. 9-time Pro Bowler, future Hall of Famer, and maybe potentially a Seattle Seahawk if it turns out that Charles Cross is going to miss extended time at left tackle. Listen, Jason Peters could be 61 and he'd be better than what the Seahawks rolled out there at tackle yesterday. Stone Forsythe is a turnstile, and Jake Curhan couldn't block me coming off the edge. They embarrassed me so bad. I'm not happy about the way the Seahawks performed. But anyway, other injury notes. Let's see if
I'm sorry to interrupt you. That is one of the few things as a sports fan that you always have to cling to, right? Is don't embarrass me.
Yes.
Especially if you're on the national game.
Yes.
All the Bears fans I know felt this way yesterday.
Because then you're embarrassing me in front of my family. You're embarrassing me in front of my neighbors.
And let me tell you this, and I know you know this too. When you live somewhere where the dominant team is not your favorite team, you're always the team guy. Like you here are the Seahawks guy.
Yes.
I here am the Packers guy. So when Aaron Rodgers did something dumb the last couple years, when the Seahawks have a bad game, when the Packers have a bad game, it's always, man, what happened to your boys out there?
Yes, it reflects poorly on me.
Don't talk to me about this.
When Geno Smith goes 3 for 9 for 6 yards, or whatever the hell it was in the second half, because Jake Curhan should be a bouncer at a strip club in Bellevue, Washington, instead of playing football, then it reflects poorly on me. It makes me look bad. And they should think about that before they play like that.
So true.
Anyway, one other injury note. This is a big one, too. Offensive lineman Jack Conklin done for the year for the Cleveland Browns, tore up his knee. So Jack Conklin will miss the rest of the season. He will have season-ending surgery.
Man, that is brutal. Also, a couple other quick injury ones to get to. Jacoby Myers had a big day for the Raiders yesterday. He got hit hard, square in the head at the end of their game. Got knocked out. Oh,
that was Kareem Jackson put the hit on him. Yeah.
Ugh, that looked bad.
That enabled the Raiders to win that game.
Yeah, it did.
Sustain that drive.
Also, Jalen Petrie, safety for the Texans, had a bruised lung, got hospitalized yesterday, was kept a little extra time for observance at the hospital, but it sounds like he is going to be just fine going forward, even if he misses a little time. Before we get to college football with this next headline, I want to bring this up from Tyler in the YouTube comments. And Tyler, thank you for the comment here. If the Chiefs go 16-1, I'm going to bill Chris Jones the amount I put on them to go undefeated. You know what? Fair.
Yeah,
totally fair.
I bet he can cover it.
I'm sure he can now. Those incentives will be easy to hit. Let's go to college football for our next headline today, Dan. How about the AP poll for this week? No movement for the Kansas State Wildcats. They remain 15th. I imagine that's because of poll inertia more than anything. Some teams move down below you. Some teams move up past you. Beating Troy is a good win. No doubt about that. But K-State remains 15th. KU still unranked. However, if the poll was expanded out beyond 25, KU would have been 29th this week. They got 19 votes, tied with TCU for the third most of anyone. Clemson fell out of the poll. Everybody laugh at Dabo. Let's all laugh at little old Dabo, little old Clemson. Arkansas also just outside the poll this week with 33 votes. Tulane also slid out after their loss to Ole Miss. As for who is actually ranked this week, Georgia is still your number one team, followed by Michigan. No surprise with either of them. Georgia struggling against the spread a little bit this season. Something to keep an eye on as we approach SEC play. Florida State is up one spot. They're now third in the nation after they beat Southern Miss by 1 billion. Texas jumping 7 spots. They are fourth after their win over Alabama. Meanwhile, Bama, they fell in equal numbers, 7 spots this week. USC is number 5 in the country. They're up 1 spot. They killed Stanford. They should have just canceled the second half of that game. It was not even real football at that point. Ohio State down a spot despite winning. The rest of your top 10, Penn State is 7th, Washington 8th, Notre Dame in 9th, and then aforementioned Alabama, they come in 10th. Other teams that might be of interest to us in Big 12 country, future Big 12 member Utah, they stay sturdy at number 12 after their win over Baylor on Saturday. That game ended so terribly. Like, there's so many people who say, well, you got to swallow the whistle at the end of games. Dude, there was a mugging, a straight up mugging, pulled the knife out on the guy, like stole his wallet in the end zone, and they didn't call it. It was ridiculous. Colorado, Coach Prime, 18th in the nation, their highest ranking in better part of 2 decades, if I'm not mistaken. They're up 4 spots to 18th this week.
Colorado had Michael Irvin on the sideline in Boulder, acting like he went to Colorado. He was acting up on the sideline like it was like Miami, and Miami was playing a big game at home against Texas A&M. And Michael Irvin, Mr. All About the U, is in Boulder, hanging out on the sideline with the Wu-Tang Clan.
Listen, I love the Wu-Tang Clan.
Hey.
Okay, I do, genuinely.
This is my question. Do you think anybody on the Colorado roster knows a single Wu-Tang song?
So I had the same question. I'm sure they have heard.
Do they know what CREAM stands for?
I'm sure they do, because that's kind of like in the lexicon. But like, none of these dudes have ever heard Tears before.
Do they know who bats lead off on Bring the Pain?
None of these kids have ever heard Triumph before. No chance. How many of these kids have ever listened to Only Built for Cuban Links? None of them.
Do those kids know who Big Baby Jesus is?
None of them.
No. But I say that to say this. Colorado is the it team in college football in a way. I don't know that there's been an it team in college football since USC in the mid 2000s.
And then the U before them.
And the U before. And they all had to win. This is 2 games. This is legend in 2 games, like on Pee Wee Kirkland, Coach Prime. 2 games. And Colorado is now the program, the place to be. ESPN and Fox are going to set up in Boulder for the Rocky Mountain Showdown. It's not even a good game. Colorado State is roadkill in this game.
This is so good for Colorado State. They're going to get so much more attention than they would have gotten all year otherwise.
And if you know anything about Boulder, Colorado, that this is happening there is the wildest thing I have ever seen. I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this in all my years of following sports. I cannot wrap my mind around this being what it is after 2 games in Boulder, Colorado. It is remarkable. This is already paid for itself for the University of Colorado. The basketball team just scored a 4-star recruit out of Dallas today. Yeah. I saw, because he was hanging out on the sideline with NBA players during the game.
Yeah.
Like,
college sports doesn't have this. Like, it really doesn't have that cool. And sometimes they do. You know, K-State got a little bit of this rub, you know, with the little baby thing during the NCAA tournament. They got a little of that.
They got some cool points. They got some cred.
You know, Duke in basketball does as much as anyone because of the players they get, and they win all the time. And I guess Kentucky had Drake show up, but
boy, Drake is absolutely coming to the USC game.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In 2 weeks, Drake is going to be down on the sideline wearing a Rashawn Salam throwback, and Colorado's going to lose by 80 points. So that's where it all goes downhill.
But like we haven't had this in college football in a long time, and that's cool. I'm not, dying to get all Colorado everything in my wardrobe, but it is kind of cool that there is a program like this right now. By the way, final note on the poll, Oklahoma is 19th this week. They went down a spot despite winning. And your weekly Iowa alert, they again did not reach 25 points. They are now 5 points off the pace to have Brian Ferentz keep his job.
Brian Ferentz's speed bus is averaging 22 points a game, and that includes a pick 6 on Saturday. So it's even worse for his offense than it appears.
And they have played Utah State and the worst Iowa State team in almost a decade.
Step on it, Keanu. The bus can't slow down.
That is your AP poll look from the weekend. Any other headlines for you today?
There's one other here that I wanted to make sure we got to today.
Yeah.
I think this is interesting regarding college basketball. There's a new Fox Sports sponsored postseason basketball tournament in the works. Remember the Vegas 16?
I do.
This was a proposal, and I think it was backed by the Fox network a couple of years back, that there was going to be, in addition to the NCAA tournament and the NIT, and is it the CBI that's still around? Yes, the CBI. Yeah. The CIT is dead. But I think the CIT still existed back when the Vegas 16 was first a conversation piece. It was going to be another postseason college basketball tournament, and it was going to take place in Las Vegas and have 16 teams, hence the name Vegas 16. Well, we are closer to that being a reality, a 16-team event sponsored by Fox Sports and featuring schools from the Big East, Big 10, and Big 12. It would occur after the Elite Eight games of the NCAA tournament. Why is it notable that the Big East, Big 10, and Big 12 would be involved? Who is their main media partner, or one of their main media partners in basketball? The Fox Network. There is also reportedly an NIL component planning to encourage corporate sponsors to set up name, image, and likeness deals for players who are competing. The network, of course, will not be able to pay players directly due to NCAA rules. Seth Davis of The Messenger broke this news, saying that the top 16 teams in the Big 12, Big East, and Big 10 that did not qualify for the NCAA tournament would be required to play in the Fox event, even if they are invited to the NIT. Now, we have seen teams from power conferences decline NIT bids in recent memory. Most prominently last year, North Carolina said no to the NIT after they did not receive an NCAA tournament berth. One source told NJ Advanced Media, where I'm getting this article from, New Jersey, obviously with an interest in this because Rutgers and Seton Hall are both involved with these leagues. The NIT, as we all used to know it, doesn't carry the weight anymore. People aren't paying to go watch North Texas, who, of course, won the NIT last year, beating UAB in an all-conference USA championship. So I'm of two minds on this. Number one, I'm of the mind that we don't need more college basketball tournaments with teams that weren't good enough to make the big tournament.
I agree with that.
But I'm also of the mind that if this keeps the big conferences from deciding that what really needs to happen to the NCAA tournament is either it is expanded or it becomes wholly consumed by the power conferences, then I hope this succeeds. Because I would rather have the Vegas 16 exist than a 96-team NCAA tournament or an NCAA tournament without Cinderella.
I agree with all of those things. My big concern, and our pal from the Extra Points newsletter, Matt Brown, put this out there as well, among other people on Twitter. My worry is that this is a prelude to killing the NCAA tournament and not like getting rid of a major postseason basketball championship, but trying to build a power conference only championship, which kills so much of the fun of the tournament.
The NCAA tournament is not the NCAA tournament without the small conference teams, the Cinderellas. Like, that is what makes the NCAA tournament great. That is not what the networks think makes the NCAA tournament great. What the networks think make the NCAA tournament great is Duke and Kentucky and Kansas and North Carolina and Michigan and UCLA and all of these other brand names being a part of the tournament. And to be completely honest with you, the TV numbers tell a very similar story. Like, we love the Cinderellas, like us, you, me, probably you, if you're listening to this. If
the diehards.
Yes, if you are this kind of a sports fan, you love the Cinderellas too. But in the second weekend, the ratings for St. Peter's games paled in comparison to the ratings for games featuring even lesser basketball programs from the power conferences. So, because the NCAA is such an ineffectual governing body and have allowed essentially television executives to run big-time college sports now, that is a very real future that could exist, where the networks decide what's best for the NCAA tournament is to only have the blue bloods.
Don't like that one bit.
No, it absolutely sucks.
People who run TV networks should not also run college sports, but that's a discussion for another day. We have to get to our first commercial break at this 5 o'clock hour. When we come back, we'll go around the NFL here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube if you're not already. YouTube.com. Just search 580 Sports Talk. We're the first result. Subscribe. It's where you can find all of our live streams every day, all of our video content. Dan's recap from K-State this past Saturday afternoon.
Jake would want me to give him credit for his filmography there.
Yes, he did do a very good job. It was very, very steady. I will give him credit for that. He didn't have to hold it down so much, though. It made you look really short.
He's very tall.
You gotta go up. Gotta make Dan look really big. Kneel down and hold it up. It's all about the angles.
Yeah, that's for next time.
That is on our YouTube. Again, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. We'd love for you to go check it out and subscribe if you haven't already. All right, lots to get you from the NFL. We don't have a ton of time left in the show. I've got a whole list here of things that really stood out to me from the weekend. The first couple just that pop out to me, good, bad, indifferent. The Bengals were terrible. I mean, Joe Burrow looked awful, and I'm outside of the greater Cincinnati, Ohio Valley region. I will defend Joe Burrow more than anyone. He looked awful. And I think it's because he didn't play all preseason, because last year, if you remember, he did not play all preseason, and week one, he was awful. The whole team was awful.
Threw, 4 picks against Pittsburgh last year? Yeah, it might just be a thing. Like, week one, Joe Burrow plays like Browning Nagel. Like, it just might be a thing.
And look, if they end up winning 12 of the next 14, well, it doesn't really matter. They're still going to be a top seed in the AFC.
Just like it didn't matter last year. They lost to the Steelers, lost to Cooper Rush in week 2, and then they made the AFC Championship game anyway. So, way too early to panic and hand-wring about the Bengals. But
Browns defense does look better, though.
Yes, they're really good up front. Myles Garrett might be, hulking up this year.
They also have year one's Zadarius Smith, which is the best year to get Zadarius Smith. He's healthy. He hasn't pissed off all of his teammates yet, and he's raring to go. And I'm being totally honest here. His first year in Green Bay was incredible. Early in his time in Baltimore, awesome. So they've got that going for him. And they don't have Joe Woods calling their defense anymore, who was, as we like to say, a football terrorist.
There are lots of advanced metrics folks who think Cleveland is one of the best teams in the AFC, and they looked the part for one day, even with Nasty Man playing terribly.
Yeah.
That's a ceiling lowerer if that's how he played. The interception he threw to Dax Hill was classic when you hit the wrong button on the PlayStation interception.
Yeah, it really was.
He threw it right to him.
I was watching, I thought, what? How did that ball go there? How did that happen? That game obviously stood out. That was one of a couple blowouts in the early window. The Steelers, I don't even know if I can say anything worse. I mean, the Steelers got worse because Cam Hayward's hurt, but they just got punked. Kenny Pickett, who I said a week or so ago that I'm all in on this year, yikes. I'd attach my wagon to the wrong horse. Jeez.
Yeah, that was revolting. I think they had 1 yard of total offense late in the first half.
I hate to focus so much on the bad from this weekend.
There was a lot of bad.
But yeah, noon games especially were ugly. The afternoon was okay. At night, though, Cowboys defense, really good. All your favorite national football writers from The Athletic or The Ringer or Yahoo or these places that focus so much on the NFL, they'll all tell you they think the Cowboys have the best defense in the league.
Matt Verderame has them going to the Super Bowl, and we saw why last night.
Giants' offensive line was bad. The Cowboys looked great. They didn't even need Dak to be good. They were just dominant. Daniel Jones is so bad. He sucks. He's not a good NFL player, and people got conned last year into believing that because Richie James could run 5-yard glance routes, that all of a sudden he was a good quarterback. He started every game and threw 15 touchdowns. He did not even average 1 touchdown pass a game last year. That's your guy you gave all this money to? 40 mil to that dude? And I know they left him out there to die last night, but oh my God, dude, he is bad. I wrote down here in our notes, he's more Dookie than a Green Day album. He's just terrible. He's a terrible quarterback.
4 years, 160 million. What was it, 92 million guaranteed?
I think so, something like that.
And they only broke off Saquon Barkley $11 million.
He didn't end up getting nearly as much run as the game went on because it was clear that they were getting their asses kicked. But I tweeted right at the start of the game, Saquon is going to get Larry Johnson touches this year. They are going to turn him into dust running him this season, burning him up on that contract.
That's a fact.
A couple other things that I noted, things that were good. from that 49er game. Brock Purdy looked the part, and Pittsburgh looked overmatched. I mean, they played poorly on both sides except TJ Watt. Purdy looked the part. He looked really good yesterday. Zay Flowers, rookie for Baltimore, I thought he looked He looked exactly like the player he was at Boston College, where it was Boston College. All of his teammates sucked, so who knows if he's good. Nah, he's good. He really is that good. And the Charger-Dolphin game was great. That was a legitimately great game. You had superstar performances from two quarterbacks. That's the best game Tua's ever played. Tyreek Hill went nuts. Just an awesome game. Awesome game.
Tyreek Hill looked uncoverable. Yeah. Like more so than usual. I had my eye on a Charger win in that game when I heard that Teron Armstead, the star left tackle for the Dolphins, wasn't going to play. Tua's performance with and without Armstead in the lineup last year was like notable.
Mm-hmm.
Like the difference was like as vast as the Grand Canyon. And also the Chargers punked Tua and Mike McDaniel's offense. Mike McDonald's offense. That's not right either.
It's McDaniel.
It is McDaniel?
Yeah.
Okay. I get it. I thought I was getting confused with Josh McDaniel for a second.
No, it's very confusing.
Yes. The Chargers punked the Dolphins last year defensively. And I thought they'd do it again, especially without Armstead. And Tua threw for 1 billion yards. And the Chargers lost that game late in the way that the Chargers always lose games late.
Always.
It's in their DNA. Also in a team's DNA. Can we stay in the AFC West?
Let's do it.
It was essentially week 19 of the 2022 season for the Denver Broncos, who scored 16 points and lost, just like they did seemingly every week last year.
So Russ started, what was it, 15 of 17?
17 of 19 in the first half.
And I had already taken a note of potential on second thoughts for Friday of bad week 1 NFL takes. And one of the ones I wrote down was maybe Russ isn't cooked. And because he started 17 of 19, he was throwing it well. They weren't finishing drives, but he looked better. And in the second half, I mean, it was nothing. It was just a total wet fart.
And even when you go back and actually watch the tape, like the touchdown passes were good. Like the touchdown passes looked like Russell Wilson doing his thing, getting out on the perimeter, finding receivers, extending plays, the whole deal. He averaged like less than 6 yards per attempt. Like, we are still looking at the limited years of Mr. Unlimited, as I put it at one point last year. That's what it looks like. It's just going to be a lot of him playing point guard and dumping it off to the backs and dumping it off to the tight ends. And you can make something shake out of that because Russell Wilson is an accurate passer out to the flats. Like you can make some things work, but the ceiling on that is very limited. The end of the day for the Denver Broncos, this is their problem. It has been their problem for the last 6-7 years. They don't have great players.
No.
Like you need Jerome Tang, what does he say? You need dudes. The Broncos don't have dudes. Flat out, they got no dudes. Who's a dude on that team other than Patrick Surtain?
If you're being nice, Justin Simmons.
And I like Justin Simmons.
He's old.
But nowhere else. Offense, I know Judy didn't play. Like, Judy's upside is dude.
He hasn't gotten there, though.
He hasn't. Javonte Williams' upside might be dude. He's coming off an ACL.
Sutton's never recovered from his ACL.
Right. Russell Wilson was a dude. He's also 35. And they just don't have any great players. They don't have blue chip talent. Yeah. And I've been saying this for years. Yeah. And I think the Bronco fans that I follow and the media that I follow, being from there, I think they're finally starting to catch up with that idea of, okay, yeah, we just don't have enough like make a play guys.
Yeah.
And they haven't. Like, when was the last time they had a great linebacker on the Denver Broncos? You have to go back to like Derek Johnson. Not Derek Johnson, DJ Johnson.
Yeah.
Obviously wrong Johnson. Like Danny Trevathan, like, was fine. It's been years since they've had a playmaker on defense. So yeah, I think it's gonna be another long year for the Broncos. That was a pretty grim start. Felt like same old for them.
Real quick, while we're taking some personal victory laps. I don't know that Jordan Love's going to be great. He had some moments yesterday where he looked darn good. He had a couple throws where I thought, ooh, boy, that's not so good. Packers defense looked better than they've looked in a long time. But I do know this. Justin Fields ain't it. He can't throw. He can. He's got arm talent, but it's not happening. He's an incredible athlete, and I have nothing against him personally. He seems like a great dude. He can't do it. He can't quarterback. He threw the worst pick six I can remember seeing in recent memory from an NFL team. He stared right at Packer linebacker Quay Walker yesterday and then threw it right in his chest with a crosser behind him.
It looked like one of the interceptions Milroe threw for Alabama against Texas.
Dude, he's awful. I had a buddy text me. He goes, dude, you were right. This dude sucks. Like, I told you. I'm telling you.
Now, I was impressed with Jordan Love. He did all that without his number one wide receiver, Watson. I thought that was a really, really good performance for Jordan Love. I feel a lot better about the Packers than I did going into week 1.
Yeah, there will be growing pains at some point, but I was very encouraged by what we saw from him. And ownership still belongs to the Green Bay Packers of the Chicago Bears. We have to get to a quick break. We'll preview Monday Night Football next on 580 Sports Talk. Nasty weather in the Northeast, but we will have Monday Night Football at some point tonight. Bills versus Jets. Major game in the AFC East to open the season. We're going to get Buck and Aikman on the call. You know it's going to feel like a big game. Who you got tonight?
I think the Bills are going to win. I like their roster better than the Jets. I like their quarterback better than I like New York's quarterback. It should be a good quarterback matchup, but I think Allen's better than Rodgers at this stage. There's so much hype with the Jets. It's going to be a hot crowd tonight, but Buffalo's been in these spots before, and this Jets team, like by and large, really hasn't. So I'm gonna go Buffalo here to win in New York, but I wouldn't, like, from a financial interest perspective, wouldn't touch this game with a 99.5 foot pole.
Yeah, I would be opposed to it as well. I did read somewhere on the betting markets that the public, us, are really on the Bills, whereas the Jets have historically been really good in season openers against the spread. But it's, as Matt Verderame told us earlier, it's such a new team. Like, it's not just Aaron Rodgers, and he's the most important new part of that team, but you added a bunch of new receivers. You added new players on defense. You still have no idea if that offensive line is going to be any good, and I kind of lean that it's not. So I'm going to pick the Bills as well. I think they're a better team probably than the Jets are. I think they're a better coached team than the Jets are. Not that I hate Robert Saleh, but I don't know that I love Robert Saleh. And is Nathaniel Hackett good, or does he just stay out of Aaron Rodgers' way? Hard to say.
Right.
Probably can lean one way or the other. Should be a fun game tonight. Really fun game. And we'll have coverage of it right here on 580 WIBW. No Royals tonight. Royals got rained out in Chicago. They punted the game. They will play a traditional doubleheader tomorrow instead at Guaranteed Rate Field in Chicago. Pre-game begins at 3 o'clock. First pitch for game 1 tomorrow is at 3:40. So we, myself, Dan, and Jake, we'll have just 1 hour of 580 Sports Talk tomorrow from 2 until 3. And tonight, before Monday Night Football, we'll also have the Chiefs Kingdom Show on at its
Yes.
normal live broadcast time, 6 o'clock right here on 580 WIBW. We've got one more commercial break to get to, so we'll touch on that, pay a couple bills, come back, and we'll wrap up 580 Sports Talk with the final word. That's next. Let's wrap it up with a quick final word before the Chiefs Kingdom Show and Monday Night Football. Dan.
I am so glad I no longer have to talk about Chris Jones's money. He has gotten at least a percentage of what he was looking for, some incentives that could see him get more money, the more sacks and the more plays he makes for the Chiefs. But most importantly, he's back on the roster. He'll be back in the building. He'll be back on the field. The Chiefs are a better team with him. They are more likely to win the Super Bowl with him. And this saga, which annoyed people to no end, which turned people on who had been one of the more popular players in franchise history, is finally over. And hopefully they can raise a third Lombardi together and bygones can be bygones by the time a trade is made next year.
Yeah, that's the number one thing here is we talk about it because it is important and it pertains to the Chiefs and their ability to win. And it's a superstar player and all of that. But I would much rather talk about actually playing games and strategy and matchups than talk about a dude's contract. So I'm very happy that he is back for at least this year. We'll worry about this again coming up in the winter. My other final word, by the way, how many states can you think of that with all of their FBS teams are undefeated this year? I can think of three, actually. I can think of three.
The one I think of is the one we're in right now.
Yep. I know Washington, both UW and Washington State are 2-0. Oregon and Oregon State are 2-0. Kansas and Kansas State are both 2-0. And some of the best football in America right now is being played in the state of Kansas. KU with a huge win on Friday. K-State with an incredibly impressive win over a tough Troy team at home on Saturday. They get to go play Mizzou coming up this Saturday. That should be a fun one. I assume it'll be a very fun one if you're a K-State fan. Really good college ball being played in our state right now, and that is something we all should be able to enjoy. And that will do it for 580 Sports Talk today. We're back tomorrow for just 1 hour. Myself, Dan, Jake, 2 to 3 tomorrow before we get to the Royals doubleheader. No Royals baseball tonight, so the Chiefs Kingdom show and Monday Night Football are coming up next. For Jake, for Dan, I'm Brendan. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 580 Sports Talk.